Good morning. Welcome to the CUGC XL Northeast. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. We are so glad you're here. I'm Naza, one of your MCs for the day, and James Ma will be the other event MC. You'll get to meet him in a later session. Greetings from Lehigh University. I lead the Philadelphia CUGC. We're excited to be your guides for the day. I'd like to start off with some thank yous. A big thank you to all the group leaders who helped to plan this event. It would not be possible without their ideas and input. Next, we'd like to thank our speakers for today. We have a fantastic speaker lineup for today, starting off with our keynote speaker, Kevin Hancock, who I'm excited to see, followed by three fabulous CTAs joining us, Johannes North, George Kurvilla, and Ruud Hund. Finally, we owe a big thank you to our event sponsors, because without their support, this event would not be possible. Liquidware, Nutanix, ControlUp, iGel, EG Innovation, Goliath, Login VSI, and Stratodesk. Along with, of course, Citrix. Thank you very much for all the support you guys have given us over the years. Please make sure to go by their booths throughout the day and check out their awesome resources. While you're there, say hello in the chat and ask any questions you might have. So here's a snapshot of what we have in store for you today. We're going to have some great speakers, sponsor presentations, roundtable discussions, and a comedy show to wrap up the day. At 2:50 p.m. Eastern Time, we will have 4 roundtable sessions that you can participate in. Each of our speakers from the day will be moderating a table. George will moderate a write table, Johannes and ADC work from home table, Ruud an Sd-Wan table, and Martin Fox an automation table. Make sure to follow CUGC on Twitter and live tweet throughout the event for a chance to win a pair of Apple AirPods. Keep in mind, throughout the day, you should visit each of our event sponsors. In their booth, they will have a poll that you can respond to be entered for a chance to win a prize. If you visit each booth, interact with the sponsor, and ask and answer their poll question, you will be entered for a chance to win one of 8 $100 Amazon gift cards. Make sure to answer the poll question for a chance to win. The fun part, these are only available to end users. So that makes your odds significantly better to get a great prize just for finding out more information about things you wanted to look up anyway. Stay till the end, because those aren't the only prizes we have. Throughout the day, we're going to randomly select attendees who have been engaged during the meeting to win an Apple AirTag. Winners will be randomly selected and announced in the chat. You can increase your chances of winning by chatting, asking questions, visiting sponsor booths, and attending the roundtable discussions. Make sure you stay till the end, because those aren't the only prizes we have. We have Amazon gift cards, end computing devices, AirPods, Apple HomePods, charging, docking stations, and more. Following the prize session, we will have comedian Arvin Mitchell joining us on the stage. You won't want to miss his hilarious comedy show. This is a list of our upcoming webinars. You can register for them on mycugc.org. The CUGC Women in Tech are also hosting a virtual event next Wednesday, June 16th. Join us at 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. goes without saying, be sure to join your local group on mycugc.org. If you haven't already, to receive communications about upcoming events. Local meetings are happening all the time. Hopefully things are settling down and we can get back to meeting in person once again. Check out mycugc.org to see if a meeting is happening in your city soon. So with that, I'd like to introduce Nutanix. First up on the stage, let's have Nutanix.
Welcome to today's session. Nutanix Technical Introductions in 5 minutes or less. My name is Kees Bogeman, and I'm a Technical Director for End User Computing within Nutanix. I've got a blog, a Twitter feed, and an email stream. If you want to hit me up with questions later on, then feel free to do so. Now, if you look at Nutanix as a company, you'd see that we have one platform for any app and any cloud, where there's a strong focus on long-term sustainable growth with multiple products, both on the platform, on the application, and cloud agnostic side. We've defined the 4 Ds within our portfolios. So we started off with digital hyperconverged infrastructure services. That's our bread and butter. That's where our virtualization, our storage, management and operation and security is hosted. Then we've designed the data center services business unit that holds the storage components of objects and other storage related services, networking and business continuity and disaster recovery. Then there's DevOps services that will offer cloud-native applications, automation with Calm, our automation and orchestration lifecycle management. And there's database as a service as well. And last but not least, there's a business unit called Desktop Services, and that will cover end-user computing, DaaS, and digital workspace. All of that, we do that across both private cloud and public cloud, and that's where I wanted to talk to you about today. So if we look at the case for hybrid cloud deployments, we actually saw that based on IDC and Enterprise Cloud Index, that 85% of the enterprises continue to rank that hybrid cloud model as the ideal operating model. 73% of the respondents were migrating applications away from public cloud back to an on-premises infrastructure. And 60% of the respondents said that security was the biggest factor impacting enterprises' future for cloud strategies. And if you combine all of that, obviously Nutanix always had a stronghold in the on-prem data center solutions with our HCI core foundation. But looking forward, it would make sense to kind of offer something that enables you to build a bridge to hybrid cloud. And that's basically what we're doing. So if we specify this for end user computing and we're looking to that one workload a little bit closer, you would see that our hyperconverged infrastructure is a perfect match for desktop services, being server VDAs or desktop VDAs, doesn't really matter. Private cloud and public cloud operated by the same management plane, same look and feel, and the same tool set that you would use on-prem and in public cloud, simplifying your deployment, simplifying your golden image management, which has always been a tough situation to be in. If you leverage on-premises solutions and you burst into public cloud, then you have to do image management for each and every public cloud, spread it across regions. It kind of inherent complexity when you look at it. And we as Nutanix can simplify that. Now, how are we simplifying this? Looking at the integration points that we have, we've got a plugin for MCS. So if you look at the hypervisors that we support, it's vSphere, ESX, it's Microsoft Hyper-V, and there's Nutanix AHV. And Nutanix AHV is our own built-in hypervisor. And together with Citrix, we developed a joint solution to deliver the provisioning methodologies from Citrix onto Nutanix AHV. And for that, we created an MCS plugin. We've created the PVS plugin, so you can utilize both MCS and PVS on our platform. And there's a CVAT service plugin via Prism. And last but not least, there's a plugin for Director as well, which enables you to kind of get the details of your AHV underlying platform. and get the performance details that you need. So all in all, if we look at how we differentiate for end user computing, it's the platform of your choice. So pick your own broker, version, hypervisor, and platform. Doesn't matter which hardware vendor you're preferring. We have a OEM model that helps you define and pick the right platform for you. There's a per user pricing model to match infrastructure costs to the EUC licensing models that we see in the field. Linear scalability. And this is something that I think is very valuable. So we can scale from hundreds to 10,000 VMs with linear performance. And we have that documented in our reference architectures. We've got videos on YouTube. So please have a look and see for yourself. And last but not least, we have a complete end user computing solution. So people always look at end user computing as a fully assembled stack. And that's what Nutanix is doing with integrated file shares, security with our network segmentation called Flow, and now clusters as well. So building that hybrid bridge is something that we're dedicated to. And with that, I'd like to thank you. If you're interested in our technology stack or just want to hear more, we've got a virtual booth with the Nutanix team waiting for you. Thank you. Welcome to today's session, Nutanix Technical.
Thank you, Nutanix. That was great, actually. To kick us off today, we have Kevin Hancock. Kevin is our keynote speaker and is an award-winning author, speaker, and CEO. Kevin is the recipient of the Ed Muskie Access to Justice Award, the Habitat for Humanity Spirit of Humanity Award, the Boy Scouts of America Distinguished Citizen Award, and Timber Processing Magazine's Man of the Year Award. Kevin is a frequent visitor to the Pine Ridge, Indiana Reservation in South Dakota, and an advocate of strengthening the voices of all individuals within a company or a community through listening, empowering, and shared leadership. Kevin is also the founder of a nonprofit organization called The Seventh Power, dedicated to advancing economic sovereignty for Native communities across America. Let's give a warm welcome to Kevin Hancock.
Hang on, I'm muted. There, sorry. Nazir, thank you, and hello, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be with you. I was wondering as I sat here, this might be the first time ever that the local lumber guy was the keynote speaker at a Citrix user conference. I'm sitting in our home office in Casco, Maine, and I'm looking across the street at one of our 3 white pine sawmills. And then behind me out the window is literally miles of timberland, native Maine forest. The primary species of tree that grows on our land is the eastern white pine. And you may know this, but it takes quite some time to grow one. It takes 80 to 100 years to grow a pine tree. And that's a business that we're actually in. So we have one of the oldest companies in America. Our company began doing business in 1848. Our company is Hancock Lumber, and I'm part of the 6th generation of my family to work there. So our company goes back to 1848. We've been growing trees since before the Civil War, and we've only actually had 2 crops. You have to take a long-term view of business and life and the world in order to be in the business of growing pine trees. I would also say that we had a very different COVID work experience than most. Our company has 600 people who are part of our team spread out across 15 sites, manufacturing and retail sites in Maine and New Hampshire. And we never closed, nor did we ever work remotely the entire time during COVID. As I became fond of telling people, we never quite figured out how to manufacture lumber from our couch in sweatpants. So our business, our industry is one where you have to show up in order to do it. You have to be there on site, and everybody has to show up. We need every manufacturing station occupied in order for the system to function. So we worked on site the entire time through COVID, and it went quite well. It went extremely well, in fact. And when I think about why today's subject really comes to mind, I think it was our corporate value system that positioned our company to continue to thrive safely for well over a year during COVID. What are the cornerstones of that value system? There are three of them, and they're what I want to talk about with you today. Number one, shared leadership. Number two, dispersed power. And number three, respect for all voices. Now, think about how a virus travels. It travels one human at a time. So the only way to manage a virus is at the individual local level. In my view, that is simply one of countless examples of how humanity actually evolves. Humanity evolves one human at a time. And that brings me to kind of the first key thought I want to share today. And it's such an important one, I think, that's not really thought about enough. How does change happen? How does sustainable, authentic, positive change happen within society or within a company or a smaller community? I thought quite a bit about this, and in my view, this is the formula. Change takes place first within us, then beside us, and then beyond us. So despite all the external noise that we all are accumulating in a 24/7 internet-wired world, to create change, we've actually got to draw a breath and pull our focus back within ourselves. The world changes when we change how we engage it. When I grow, that impacts people beside me. When I change, those beside me change. And that is the ripple that eventually gets us to beyond. So I believe change occurs within, then beside, then beyond. And that is meant to be, of course, a very empowering approach. That we're the ones that change the world by becoming, as Gandhi said, the change that we wish to see. And I believe that the natural world of which humans are a part backs this up. I was doing some work a couple of years ago for my second book on the Navajo Reservation east of Flagstaff. And that evening, right at sunset, I was walking in the desert alone contemplating the future of leadership when these 5 words plopped into my head, literally plopped into my head. In nature, power is dispersed. And it really was the guiding clue I'd been searching for as I thought about leadership. I stopped in my tracks and I looked around and had an out loud conversation with the desert landscape. I said out loud, where's the capital of this desert? Where's its corporate headquarters? Where's the CEO? How is this desert functioning without all kinds of managers and supervisors? I actually turned and looked at one of the group of cactus and I said, hey, which one of you is in charge of all the others? And the answer for me to each of my rhetorical questions was the same. The leadership power of nature is dispersed. It lives in all its parts and pieces, big and small. And humans who are a part of nature, not above it, ultimately aspire to organize in this same way. So that brings me to this thought, which is really trying to pull what I just talked about into the place of work and starting to think very differently about the very purpose of the place of work to begin with. And I'm oversimplifying, but it's not unfair to say that the historic work paradigm is that the employee exists to serve the company. And I've become enchanted, if you will, honestly, with a new paradigm, which is the company exists to serve the people who work there. And the company will end up soaring to unprecedented heights as a result of that service, but that is the outcome of a higher calling. To say it differently, work should be meaningful in more than just economic ways to the people who do it. But what's the real lay of the land? So I just laid out a vision of what work should be like, but what's it actually like? Well, if you ask people who work, it's a very mixed bag. Statistically, across America today, or to keep it simple, let's say pre-pandemic, there were approximately 160 million people working. Of those 160 million American workers, only 34% of them will define that experience as engaging. If you blow this up and look globally at people who work, it gets worse. Globally, 2 billion people work, and about 15% will describe that experience as engaging. So the big question there to me is why? Why is deep human engagement and personal meaning so often missing from the workplace as defined by the people who work there? I've concluded the answer is actually extremely simple. It's because people typically don't feel authentically heard at work. So found myself a CEO of a lumber company in Maine thinking about the purpose of life as a germane question to my job and my work at our company. Why? Because work should enhance life. Otherwise, what's the point? So if work should enhance life, we've got to actually contemplate the purpose of life in order to set correctly the purpose of work. So I've been contemplating that perhaps ultimately an answerable question, what is the purpose of life? And I've come to the following potential conclusion. It's to self-actualize. That's what brings every human to Earth, and that's what all humans at their core share in common. We're each here living a life on Earth, trying the best we can to come into our own authentic, never to be repeated voice. In that forest behind me, there are thousands and thousands of pine trees. From a distance, they all look alike. Up close, none of them are identical. So is it for humans. There will never, ever be another you. Your inner, authentic, true voice is a one-time manifestation of this universe and gift to humanity. And a great company, a great society, a great organization would be a place where that's brought out, not pushed away or discouraged. So back to the purpose of work. And this is where mission really matters. Think about this thought. I believe that most companies get whatever they prioritize. So a critical question for any company is at the highest level, what are we going to prioritize? And at this lumber company in Maine, this is what we've chosen to prioritize. Our number one mission is to help people at work find their own true voice and self-actualize. The real mission of this company is to enhance the lives of the people that work here and to make a meaningful contribution to the quality of their lives. For that same book I was talking about from the Arizona desert, I next ended up in London having breakfast with a Colombian advertising executive by the name of Jose Miguel Sokoloff. And he said something to me that I've carried with me ever since. He said, we all adhere to a belief system. Otherwise, we don't have a strategy for dealing with a complex world. Here's, I want to take just a minute and talk to you about the foundation of my belief system that all humans are here to self-actualize, to find their own true voice. Two events brought me to that conclusion. The first was in 2010, near the peak of the national housing and mortgage market collapse. I started to have trouble speaking, something I'd always taken for granted and done a lot of as a CEO. When you think about it, really, as a CEO, your tool is your voice. That's what I did. I talked. And suddenly I was having lots of trouble talking, and it got worse and worse. When I went to talk, it felt like someone had put a seatbelt around my neck and fastened it, and my voice got very raspy and choppy and broken and weak and hard to hear, and it hurt at the time. It was really, really difficult. Turned out I'd acquired a very rare neurological voice disorder called spasmodic dysphonia that affects perhaps 20,000 people in North America, of which I was now one, and which had no known cause and no known cure. So I found myself trying to figure out how to help guide a lumber company through the collapse of the housing market as its CEO without being able to use my voice. And I didn't really have any mentors or guides for how to do that, but it actually gets quite simple. When it's hard to talk, you develop strategies for doing less of it. And mine became to answer a question with a question, thereby putting the conversation right back on the other person. So someone would come up to me at work in that traditional scene because I was an executive at the company with a question or a problem. Previously, with a healthy voice, I would have given an answer and a directive and guidance. Now, what I started saying to protect my broken voice was simply this. Geez, that's a great question. What do you think we should do about it? He or she would then give an answer. And essentially every time I would then say, again, initially, just to protect my voice, that sounds great, go do that. And off he or she would go with his or her solution to the problem that they had originally tried to bring to me. Now, over time, this was just a protective approach for my voice, but having done this hundreds of times over months, something really struck me, and it was this. People actually already knew what to do. They didn't actually need my advice or direction or guidance. All they really needed was the permission, the safety, the encouragement, and the support to trust their own voice and to act on their own instincts and what it was that they saw and knew. Of course, in a company, in any company, 600 people at ours, every employee knows more about their job than I do. And this really becomes the basis for dispersed power, is to free that knowledge, that intuitive, localized, quick, reactive, instinctive knowledge across the entire organization. So that was event number one in 2010. Then in 2012, I ended up traveling serendipitously, really, to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in the southwest corner of South Dakota. In August of that year, I picked up a copy of National Geographic magazine, and that reservation was on the cover. And I read the article, and I was swept up in a way I'd never really been swept up before by anything I'd read, and felt like just a deep connection to these people on this remote, historic Sioux reservation in the southwest corner of South Dakota. Finished the article, leaned over to my wife, Allison, and said, you know what? I'm going to go there. I want to see what life is like for the people who live there. I ended up making a connection, making a first trip in the fall of 2012. And it's a place I've now been over 20 times. I have lots of friends there. I've taken 2 Lakota names, written a book about my experiences there, but really, most importantly, just been transformed by their community. The Pine Ridge Indian Reservation is the biggest, poorest, most remote, most historically disenfranchised of all the Sioux reservations on the Northern Plains. It's home to some of the most famous names in Sioux history: Red Cloud, Crazy Horse, Black Elk, and others. And today, statistically, it's the poorest place in America. Now, here's the connection. At Pine Ridge, I met an entire community that felt as if a piece of its voice had been taken, stolen, or marginalized. This was an entire community that did not feel fully heard. The combination of those 2 events created within me, again, remember how change is created within, then beside, then beyond. Within me, 5 personal learnings. first, from my own voice condition, I actually did understand for the first time in my life what it was really like to not feel fully heard. Second, from my time at Pine Ridge, I came to see that there are lots of ways for humans to lose a piece of their authentic voice in this world, which brought me point number 3 to that premise I mentioned earlier, which is, I wonder if actually that's the very purpose of life. Perhaps we're all just here trying to self-actualize. So then I got thinking about leadership again. If that's why humans are here, then that's what human leaders should be trying to facilitate. But then I got depressed when I contemplated that one, because I concluded honestly that across time, leaders of established organizations had probably done more in total to restrict, direct, control, and limit the voices of others than to liberate them. And that's when it hit me. That was the first time it hit me that maybe the partial loss of my own voice, which I only ever previously thought of as a hindrance or a liability or a pain in the neck, was actually an invitation and a gift and a blessing to lead differently, because I was the leader of an organization. But to lead differently in what way? To give voice to others. That the partial loss of my own was an invitation to gift voice to others. So then that led me to that next big phase of any action in life, which is taking something from your head, an idea or a vision, and actually trying to do it. And this is when I got really focused on trying to create what I now call an employee-centric company, where the first mission of the company is the experience of the people who work there. And our goal in driving that company culturally was going to be to disperse the power, not collect it, to share the leadership broadly, and to see if all 600 people could feel safe in their authentic voice. To create that kind of culture, what had to change? So we started to talk about that, think about that, and then work on it. And we concluded 5 things needed to change: the mission, the metrics, our definition of leadership, the very purpose of listening, and finally our systems for decision making. So the mission, that was simple, and I really just described it. The employees don't exist to serve the company exists to serve the employees. And the company's going to soar led by those employees when they feel fully served. Okay, that's the mission, and everybody benefits. So it's a good mission. But how are we going to measure that? Before, when the company had been the focus, well, we measure that 1,600 ways to Sunday, just like you do. But the employee experience, we hadn't really measured that. So we had to find some new systems. We ended up, among other key metrics, participating in the Best Places to Work national annual survey system, where once a year, every employee in the company took a confidential third-party engagement survey, and they got to define their work experience. It wasn't Kevin Hancock talking about why he thought Hancock Lumber was a great place to work. It was the employees defining the experience. And that data set produced a score, and it produced a score by site within our company. And we simply started consistently collecting that score, making it visible to everybody in the organization, and asking our managers to make the driving of that metric their top work objective. So now we had a new metric. Third, we needed to really refine our definition of leadership, and I'll keep it simple. It was no more complicated than this. Leadership was something to be shared, not collected, given away, not taken. We had to talk about this time and time again with our managers and supervisors. Your role is to push that power out. It's to give it away. And over time, intuitively, locally, because it's how nature works, it's how humans want to function, everybody in our organization essentially figured out how to do that. Now, in order to actually implement that at a specific level, we really then had to talk about listening. And the core concept there was the purpose of listening. And again, change starts from within. Before my voice condition, I used to listen to prepare my response, to evaluate whether or not I approved of what someone else was saying, and to get ready to readjust them. It's so silly to even say it now, but that was my approach if I didn't like what they said. Today, we take a very different approach. Listening is for understanding, not judgment. The only purpose of listening is for understanding. Today, when we go into huddles with our teams, essentially the only response conceptually we want our managers to give when an employee adds in perspective is to simply say this: thanks for sharing that. I don't need to pass judgment on it. I don't need to validate it. I don't need to undercut it. I don't need to explain why you're not right. What you just said is your authentic view of our corporate world as you're experiencing it, and it's perfect and valid exactly as you chose to present it. All of that led to these new decision-making systems like the one you see on the slide here. So we collect data from employees about their experience. Our focus is improving their experience. We pick topics that show from their feedback where the opportunities are. We sit with focus groups. We ask them what they would do to improve those subjects. We go to work together to improve them. We circle back weeks or months later and say, has anything changed and how can we improve it? Again, it's a never-ending iterative process that's led by the employees themselves and their authentic feedback. And the key ingredient to making it work is the culture has to be safe. The culture has to be safe for people to say what they think. So, how did that go for us? Well, I could show you a lot of slides, but I'm going to boil it down to two. So, in a very traditional blue-collar industry with 600 employees across Maine and New Hampshire, nearly 9 in 10 of them will self-describe their experience at Hancock Lumber today as highly engaging, against the national average of 33%. Now, you can say, wow, that must create great financial results, which it has. But I want to be clear about this. That's not the goal. That's the outcome of the goal. The goal is these are human beings investing a tremendous segment of their life energy into their work experience. And the goal is for that experience to be meaningful to them. The outcome is the company will soar. Now, this is a fun one to keep it simple. Our company's always done well enough to be in business across over a century and a half. But statistically, in the decade that followed this transformation, to keep it simple, our corporate profit performance in a decade exceeded the entire historic corporate profit performance of the company from 1848 to 2010. One couldn't say this was the only cause, but one couldn't convince me that there wasn't a direct correlation. At the end of the day, when you put this all together, think about another big picture human question. What separates companies, clans, communities, or countries from another? Why do some thrive while others seemingly struggle to survive? And for me, it goes back to Peter Drucker's iconic quote that culture eats strategy for breakfast. That culture makes the difference, and that great people are actually everywhere. When I started with our company back 30 years ago, we had sweatshirts that said our people make the difference. You can tell, I hope, that I'm a lover of people, but I don't actually believe that quote is true anymore. I actually believe great people are everywhere, and culture makes the difference, and that history plays this out. Take, for example, Germany after World War II. Germany was arbitrarily divided along a random line that became West Germany and East Germany. The West German side went on to become one of the greatest economic engines of the post-war era, led humanity from war to recovery. The East German side hung on through guard dogs, machine guns, and barbed wire until it collapsed under its own weight. But what actually was the difference? It's silly when you think about it that way. Would anybody offer that what happened was on that random day, all of the quote unquote best Germans ended up happening to be on the west side of that random line? And all the quote unquote, I don't know how you'd even say it, less than best Germans ended up on the east side of that line? Of course not. That country was filled with amazing people on both sides of that line. It was culture that made the difference. And what kind of culture? This was an extreme example. And extreme examples have value because they blow up in clear sight what lives everywhere. On one side of that line, you had a dispersed power leadership model, power to the individual. And on the other side of that line, you had a collected power leadership model, power to the center. The empire comes first, controlled by a few. So this is really the challenge in our modern age. We've lived as humans for centuries under an established leadership model that can be defined as power to the center. In the Aquarian age, the one we've entered, humanity is wanting to head into a new model, which is dispersed power, aligned with how nature works, power to the individual. For that to manifest, we need new leadership thinking and we need new followership thinking. Both have to be redefined. Let me wrap this up, if I may, with two closing thoughts and one closing story. This is a picture I took just south of the town of Pine Ridge a few years back, right on the Nebraska border. If you look back at how the West was won, at the time America would say that it won the West. But if you go to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation today, it would be tough to leave and say that that felt like winning. Unemployment on that reservation today is 80%. It's got among the highest suicide rates, early death rates, diabetes rates, abuse rates in America. And to me, that doesn't really feel like winning. And so in the 21st century, I think we've got to really rethink what winning means. And for me, this is what it means. Winning isn't winning unless everybody's winning. That is what I pull back into our corporate philosophy. Make sure the employees are winning spiritually, emotionally, financially, well-being, feeling heard, trusted, respected, all of that. And the company is going to win by putting the focus on others. Winning isn't winning unless everybody's winning. Second thought, imagine if there was a single root of all human social disharmony. And imagine if that root was actually addressable, actionable, combatable by every human on earth. I've thought quite a bit about this, and I've come to ponder it in the form of a question. What if everybody on earth felt trusted, respected, valued, and heard? All 7 billion people. What might change? I think everything might change. How is change created? Within, beside, beyond. So where does this change have to be implemented? With me. Where can this change take effect? It's got to take effect where adults hang out. Where do adults hang out? They hang out at work. The place of work is actually sneaky the best place on earth to transform humanity forward positively for the better. On Sunday, May 5th, 2017, my wife and I got in our car here in Maine and drove down to Providence, Rhode Island, to the dilapidated Dunkin' Donut Center to watch the last ever performance of the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. I thought it was a historic event of epic proportion that was surprisingly underreported or noted. This was the greatest show on earth going into extinction. What were the causes? Well, there were multiple, but one in particular struck me. And it was the elephant. The elephant had historically been the star of the circus. The elephant came to town. The elephant led the parade. The elephant starred in the show. But in recent times, what happened? Humanity began looking at the experience of the individual elephant, not the elephant serving the circus. The circus is the circus serving the elephant. And what's the life experience like for an individual circus elephant? And the conclusion of most was that it was not a fair or honorable trade-off. And out of that pressure, the elephant was retired out of the circus. Without the elephant in the circus never really recovered. The elephant made then broke the circus. And the point there to me is that a strength in one human epic, meaning the centralization of power and putting the empire first, can actually become a weakness in the other. And to me, that's the elephant in the room. And in conclusion, I would say this: that is Aquarian age energy. That's the age we're in. You think about the internet and how that has dispersed information. Think about what's happening with how literal energy to power cars or buildings is being created. It's going from centralized plants to dispersed and everywhere. Humanity is wanting to reunite with the pace and the tempo of the universe, which disperses power. And the place of work has a wonderful opportunity to recognize and lead this transformation, because the place of work is where humans hang out, and the place of work can thrive by transforming its focus from itself to the people who work there. So I've really come to dedicate my work to those ideas and that effort. I've got a site I'd love to have you visit titled thebusinessofsharedleadership.com. And there are all kinds of additional resources there that build on what we've chatted about today. You can particularly, right on the home screen, just enter your email and make sure you're following updates as they come out. But I'm really honored and thankful and grateful to have this opportunity to talk about these ideas with you. And in a world of dispersed power, what gives me goosebumps is not what I can do with these ideas, but what you can do. So again, thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you, and I wish you all my very best. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that great presentation, Kevin. Fantastic insights, and I appreciate you sharing with us. But wait, there's more, folks. Kevin has graciously given us 50 books to share with all of you. The first 50 people to fill out the Google form link in the chat will receive a free signed copy. Thanks again, Kevin.
My pleasure.
Next up, let's please welcome Liquidware.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matt Boyajian, Senior Solutions Architect with Liquidware, and today we're going to talk about a brand new tool coming out from Liquidware called FlexApp One. Now, previously you've heard me talk about FlexApp. We consider it to be the best application layering solution in the world, mostly because it has a lot of very cool features that you will not find anywhere else, like click to layer, package once, the ability to take an application, capture it with one version of Windows, and then deploy it onto a completely different version, fast packaging, automated DR, FlexApp cache, and then the ability to do things like deploy your applications not only through UNC paths, but also through cloud-based solutions like Azure Blob, S3, and Google Buckets. So what we have today is a completely self-contained version of FlexApp that is meant to be deployed using any solution that you want to remotely connected machines like desktops and laptops that exist out in the field. This means that we can take a brand new blank machine, deploy huge amounts of applications to it using any distribution mechanism you want. You can use SCCM, you can use Intune, you can use Workdocs, OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox, Box.net. You can even push applications to a memory stick and deploy them that way if you want. The whole point of this is that everything should be simple and easy and intuitive when it comes to deploying layered applications to any system that you have. So using Intune should just be about deploying a single executable. Using your self-service applications through your company portal, all this stuff should just work out of the box. And the user interface should be absolutely intuitive, being able to click and close layers whenever you want. So without further ado, let's go and see a demo. So we're going to log into a brand new Windows 10 20H2 system. And what we're going to do is see a brand new copy of Windows that's got nothing on it except for the default applications. Now, just to make this really easy, I'm going to go and navigate to my network, and I'm going to type in my user ID and password, and we're going to go and grab some FlexApp1 captures that I've already grabbed. So we're going to go and copy these and just paste them right over to my desktop. And we can see that I have two executables here. The first one is my FlexApp number 1 capture. We can see that we need admin rights for this, and SCCM and Intune can go and do that for us. But in this case, we're just going to give it admin rights and let it go and install all the Flex apps that we have here. And we can now see that my capture is completely activated. And if we go right here to my taskbar, we can see some of my FlexApp1 captures. Now, the real magic happens when we open up this little folder here with all the shortcuts that I have for my Flex apps. So we're going to fire up some 7-zip, and we're going to fire up some FileZilla, and we're really going to load this system up with all these applications that we've just brought in. So we're going to do some GOM players for some high output AV. We're going to do some Google Earth Pro, and Google Earth Pro needs to be put into DirectX mode because I'm running this as a virtualized system. So we're going to click OK. We're going to go and tell it to switch to DirectX mode, and now we're going to be able to fire that up. And just to make things real fun, we're also going to put this in flight simulator mode, and we're going to have it start as an F-16 right in the tarmac of New York. So there's an F-16. There's New York right there. We're going to start our flight, and there we go. We now have created a flight simulator where none existed before. We're also going to do some screenshot, which replaces some Windows print screen functionality. We're going to do some image burns so it can talk with some device drivers because of course we support those. We're going to do some Mad VR. We're going to do some Media Player Classic. We're going to go and do some Media Info and some Notepad++ and some PZip and some Pigeon. And we're going to do some Terracopy so we can replace some Windows copy handler functions. And we'll do some VLC, skinned and unskin, because why not? And we'll do a nice little throwback of Winamp, and we'll go and let that run. And we're going to do some WinDirstat, and we'll do some WinRAR, and we'll even go and do some WinSCP. Now, we're not done yet, because that was just my first set of applications that I deployed using FlexApp1. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fire up my capture number 2. So this is now a second set of applications that we're going to add to the system. And I've added a lot of cool tools here, like my sysinternals tools. So we're going to do some Access Enum. We're going to do some AD Explorer. We're now going to go do some BG Info 64. And we're going to have that tattoo the background of the screen with all the information that we want. And we're going to do some cache set. And we're also going to do some browsers. We're going to fire off some Google Chrome so it can go and eat up all my memory. And I'm going to go have it point to liquidware.com. And while that's happening, we're also going to fire off some OpenOffice, so we'll do some OpenOffice Calc, and we'll do some OpenOffice Writer, and we're just going to walk through this and make sure it's nice and happy. And just to make sure that we're really loading up the system, now we're going to do some other fun tools. We'll do some Process Explorer, we'll do some Process Explorer 64, and so we can have a 64-bit mode as well and see what's going on there. We're going to do some PSFTP, some PuTTY Gen, and now I've completely ran out of real estate in this system, but we can see that I have huge amounts of apps added to a brand new system that can be managed anyway. Now, to show that we're completely modular, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all these apps with just 2 clicks. So we're going to see that every single application was just pulled out of the system, and now we're going to go and delete that shortcut, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is what FlexApp1 is capable of. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day at the rest of the show, and if you have any questions, I will be in the booth for the rest of the afternoon.
Thank you, Liquidware and Matt. That was a lot of good information delivered very quickly. Up next, let's have Ijo.
That helps out, right? We really are a premier partner for that Linux endpoint to really create a cohesive story end to end. Another one I want to highlight is how we can reduce TCO, right, the total cost of ownership, for you by really helping to understand the challenge that you're facing today, really the move to more of an operational budget, which this pandemic has really accelerated. And then digital transformation things, right? Things like moving to Office 365, mergers and acquisitions, the stuff that's always been hard that are now made harder. So as you all may know, one of the benefits of iGel is that we're an operating system that could be run on almost any form factor. Again, here's this little device. I'm going to switch video and show you exactly how this works. So I'm going to move over to my webcam here, my other camera, a whole feature-fledged, full-fledged movie studio here, right? All right. So here I'm on a Windows device, an old Windows PC. It's actually an old Dell Latitude 6430. So all your veterans out there, you're probably like, wow, that thing is old, and it is, right? So imagine you're a work from home user. This is your device. Maybe it's your personal device, but you want to actually work securely with Citrix remotely and iGel. So I'm just going to quickly restart this device, and then you can configure the device how you'd like. You can either hit a hotkey or have users hit a hotkey to actually do this, or you can do it yourself. Here I'm just going to quickly, just to ensure that the demo goes smoothly, right? Just go ahead and choose my iGel device. Again, you can see we can do legacy or UEFI. Go ahead and click that, and you can see up in a second that the iGel workspace will load. So one of the coolest things here is that, again, you're using a small USB form factor that's really accelerating the adoption, security, and cost of running your application securely at the edge and your desktops. Citrix does such an amazing job, right, of ensuring how these applications can run remotely, how they can run securely, and iGel really becomes the enabler for that, right? It takes that last mile of what you're doing with Citrix, and it really takes it all the way into how users use it every day. So you can see here, based on the video, I'm actually into my Citrix Workspace, my iGel, I should say desktop, with my Citrix Workspace showing. So what I'm going to show you now is I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to show you exactly how this works from the iGel end. So I'm going to share my entire screen, and I'm going to go back to what we call our UMS, which is our management plane. I'm going to show you exactly how this looks. So right here, I'm going to quickly right-click, and I'm going to shadow this device. So this is a great way for your support teams or whatnot to actually support users remotely. So you can see it's pulling up there, right? You could probably see it on my video as well. But now I actually have virtual access via VNC, securely tunneled from this cloud-based management plane of iGel back into the device, right? Your Citrix work plane is still going to work the same. This is just mainly an iGel way of supporting an end user. If they have a problem, you can remote in very quickly. So really quick here, I'm just going to double-click on my Citrix Workspace. This is connected to the Citrix demo cloud, so it should pull up my applications relatively quickly in just a moment. And then you'll be able to see that I can work away and quickly log in, right, with just a couple minutes of plugging in this USB device and then getting rolling. So a very quick and easy way to get things going. So you can see here, boom, there's all my applications. So I can run these and whatnot in a very secure manner, depending on what's given to me by your IT departments. So a very cool use case. So at this point, right, as a user, right, you can see me. I'm moving the mouse around remotely on the mouse pad of the laptop next to me, right? So showing user interaction as well as I can do it here on my screen. So when I'm done, I'll quickly swap. I'll stop sharing. I'll swap back to the video really quickly. You can see here when I'm done, I can just pull this out. So you can see it turn off, right? And then I can just quickly boot back up, and it'll actually go right back into Windows. So right, the user experience of how this works is so clean. It works so well, and it really completes that story between working from anywhere with Citrix and how well that Citrix works, all the way down to, hey, what device do you have? You know what? You can pretty much use any device at this point. A major announcement that iGel broke back in January is the inclusion of running on an end computing device. So if you aren't familiar with this, this is actually a Raspberry Pi wrappered in a company called End Computing that supports it from an enterprise level, right? So I know that Raspberry Pi has been a hot topic for a lot of companies that are wanting to save money on the device aspect. They wanted something like a Raspberry Pi, but maybe they wanted something that they could support, right? That a little bit more support oomph behind it when it comes to actually deploying those. So end-to-end computing, partnered with iGel, and now we can actually run for the first time ever, right? Drum roll, please. End computing on Raspberry Pi. That'll be available very shortly, and you'll be able to run this in your environment along with almost virtually any x86 device. So you have that ability to repurpose a current x86 device, like maybe expensive desktops or laptops, and now you have the ability to bring in new cost-effective devices like the end computing Raspberry Pi device. So again, thank you all for your time. Enjoy the CUGC, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you, iGel. Thanks, iGel, again. Up next, we have Johannes North. Johannes is a CTA. Thank you for that. And we'll be presenting how to start a Citrix ADC work from home project. Johannes?
Yeah. I'm here. Just try to share my screen. Give me a second. Oof. Oh, I think it has to be this one. Yeah. Is my screen visible now? Yeah, brilliant. This is how to start a web application firewall project on a Citrix ADC. Web application firewall projects on a Citrix ADC a little bit, well, it's not easy to do. And I will go into how to start, where to start, what the challenges are. Well, first of all, I want to introduce myself. I'm Johannes North. That's what I look like. I'm a Citrix certified expert on application delivery and security. I'm a certified instructor, and most of all, I'm a member of the Citrix CTA community. I'm proud of this. I'm a blogger, I'm technical evangelist, and I'm a freelance consultant, mainly working for Citrix consulting services in Europe and in Arab countries. I live in Austria, in the middle of Europe, close to Vienna. I'm a freelancer. I love Italian red wine. Drive bicycles, racing bicycles. Maybe you see some bicycles behind me over there. And I do a lot of backpacking. I will go on backpacking tour tomorrow, and maybe 3 or 4 days. I'm not sure. Well, the agenda. What kind of problems will come up if you want to do a web application firewall project? How to find the structure of an application. The structure of an application is the most important thing. The first steps, how to begin, and how to test. Well, let's start with the worst thing, start with the problems. The usual problems in a web application firewall project is the customers usually don't know their application well, at least not from a technical point of view. So you will not get exact answers to your question. For example, I did a web application firewall project for part of the European Union, and I asked, what operating system is this application running on? And they said, we don't know. But how can I do a web application firewall if I don't know if this is Linux or Windows? Customers have no idea about the structure of the data. This is mainly true for applications like SAP and so on. It's not true about SharePoint. there's nobody able to fully test the application. So in most cases, the customer has a guy who is responsible for the application, but they won't test it completely. Mainly because the customers underestimate the risk of the application. So in many cases, the customer will just think there's hardly any risk. What should be like this? But sometimes there's a big surprise. Sometimes they have technically experienced stuff, but they are not available for the project team. And so the project is in trouble even before we actually started with the project. Before I go into the web application firewall, I want to talk a little bit about the risk. These are typical attack vectors. The source is positive technologies. So you see, security misconfiguration is the biggest part of the cake. Cross-site scripting. Cross-site scripting are scripts somebody puts on the web server or reflects to the web server that appear to come from the web server, but basically are malicious. So the user will trust the script, maybe a logon dialog, maybe the script will just steal the cookies, something like this. Broken authentication. So somebody is able to bypass the application, the authentication of the application. Just have to turn off my phone. Broken access control. Injection attacks, SQL injections, and so on. Sensitive data exposure. Sensitive data exposure is means sensitive data is exposed to the internet, but nobody knows. That's a really bad thing. This one is a stupid admin. So components with known vulnerabilities are used, and the rest seems to be small. But XML, external identities, and insecure deserialization are important attack vectors for skillful attackers. Again, same source. This is about successful attacks. So they went into successful attacks and looked how could they be successful. And positive technologies found out in most of the cases there was a bad web code in web application. Another big part of the cake is passwords had been easy to guess. People had been using outdated software, so software with well-known vulnerabilities and misconfiguration. That happens. And because of this, a huge amount of attacks had been really trivial. Anybody could have done this. You don't need to be a hacker to do this. Most of the attacks had been not difficult. So script kiddies could have done it. 70% had been of medium difficulty, so it's not very difficult. And only 8% had been really difficult. So it would have taken a real hacker to do the attack. I think that's a bloody shame. So you have to go away from the idea, from the romantic idea of a hacker being a very skillful person. To be a hacker, you just have to be very creative. This is OWASP Top 10 from 2017. This is the current version. This is attack vectors successful attackers use. So the biggest part is injection attacks, broken authentication, so people compromising passwords, keys, stealing session cookies, and so on. Sensitive data exposure. So this is nothing an attacker needed to do. The data was there, it was published to the internet. They just had to find it, maybe by mistake. This is about, so there are bad definitions in XML standard that shouldn't be used, but the subsystems support this, so an attacker could use it and abuse it. Broken access control. So this is badly defined and enforced restrictions for users. Security misconfiguration, cross-site scripting, insecure deserialization. So there is a buggy XML. So extracting data from XML is a little bit buggy, and somebody could abuse this. Using components with known vulnerabilities, I think this shouldn't be, but happens all the time. And this one is not an attack vector, but insufficient logging and monitoring can make an attack successful. Nobody would see it because we don't log enough. This is the situation in Europe and Mediterranean, Africa. This is successful attacks, sources very soon. So you see, most of the attacks, more than 50% of the attacks are basic web application attacks. A huge part is social engineering. This is about 17–18%. So this is just ask somebody and he will answer. System intrusion, and so on. But attacks to web applications is a big part of the cake. To be able to protect an application, we need to understand the application. So we have to find out how the application works. If you ask Citrix sales, they will tell you the learning feature will do everything for you. Well, this is sales. In real life, the learning feature is helpful, but it doesn't do the job. So it will tell you about how the application is structured, which files are in which directory and things like this. This is something learning feature can do for you. Sometimes headers allow conclusions to be drawn about the components used, which PHP versions, and so on. File extensions, of course, also allow you to find details about the application. And case sensitivity, of course. If an application is case insensitive, it very likely runs on a Windows server. It's very likely a Microsoft application. Different to all other subsystems in on a Citrix ADC, enabling the web application firewall will immediately do changes to all of the web servers published with this ADC. First of all, it will remove range headers. So range header is used to resume failed file transfers. IF range is very similar to range, get removed as well. If modified sins will be removed. If modified sins allows caching solutions to retrieve outdated data from a cache. So it will just send a request to the web server if modified sins maybe 5 seconds ago, and the server would probably reply with a 3 or 4, not modified. But if modified sins gets removed, so the server has to reply with the full data. If non-match is very similar to if modified sins. The accepted coding is about compression, so usually gzip and deflate. This gets removed because we have response side tests, and response side tests wouldn't benefit from compressed content because the ADC would have to uncompress content. And of course, the last modified, which is also used by caching solutions. So these headers get removed immediately. So this happens even though there is no policy applied, enabling the feature is enough. You have to keep this in mind. It's very important. The web application firewall may add following headers. The cache control header with a max age of 3 seconds, like this. So there are some headers about caching. This one as well. The last modified header gets deleted. So the last modified header replied from the server gets deleted. And the ETAG header is used in a new and different way. So this may also break the application. Again, enabling the feature is enough. And the web application firewall may add some cookies. If you use scans that use sessionization. So the Citrix NSID header, which is the session header, if you use cookie protection, it will add the Citrix NSID _ WLF will live forever. And for the permanent, for the persistent cookies, and the Citrix NSID _ WAD will act transient for the session cookies. I don't like the name of the headers to be Citrix _ NS. So this means Citrix Netscaler. And you can rename these cookies at any time you like. I would suggest doing this as a first step, rename the cookies and only then create policies, because if there are cookies, Citrix NSID cookies out there, and you rename the name of the cookies, you will break all kind of scans, and this will lead into serious troubles. So you have to do this immediately to not run into troubles. This is the life cycle of a web application firewall project. When I did my first web application firewall project, I did this together with the godfather of web application firewalls, a project in Citrix Consulting Services. And he said, well, tomorrow morning you will go to the customer. We usually drink a beer together to make friends. So we don't meet the first time at the customer side. So he said, if you come to the customer, you will go there, you will shake hands, we'll say, I'm Johannes North from Citrix International Consulting Services, and I will do false positives to you. Strange. I didn't do, of course, but I pointed out there will be false positives in any. There's no way to avoid false positives. And maybe an hour later, he showed up because he came from California to Europe, so he was a bit jet-lagged. And I heard him saying, well, I am blah, 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 and I will do false positives to you. So he really did this. So this is something you have to keep in mind. The first thing is you have to have a plan, of course, like always. You will do an implementation. You will test in a test environment, of course. You will test. You will troubleshoot it. You have to replan, re-implement, retest, troubleshooting again, and so on and so on. In a certain, if the test environment is stable, you could move it to production environment. And from production environment, you will find customers will for sure complain about issues. So you will go into troubleshooting again, planning, testing, blah, blah, blah. And every time you update the application, you will see issues with web application firewall. So web application firewall is not an easy thing to do. And it will do false positives for sure. So how to begin? Let's have a look at the most important scans. The most important one, I think, is the start URL. Start URLs permit access to approved files only, and all the rest is denied. So it's a failed closed. There are deny URLs. Deny URLs override start URLs, and they will block access to certain files, well-known files that shouldn't be exposed to the internet. The field formats. This defines which and how many characters may be in an input field. SQL injections, because they are simple and easy to abuse. And HTML cross-site scripting to avoid cross-site scripting attacks. So how do the start URLs work? The start URLs is a list of URLs that will be available to users. So everything you didn't explicitly allow will get blocked. Usually we use regular expressions to define these URLs. Of course, there's literals possible as well, but I would go into regular expressions. And the learning feature will help you to find the structure of the application. So which files are where are the pictures and so on. I would not explicitly allow all the pictures, but I would allow all JPEG GIFs, PNGs, and so on in the /images directory, for example. The deny URLs are intended to override start URLs. And of course, you can use it to block access to, let's say, the credit card log on pages that are available for internal users only. Access to customer data for non-authenticated users, access to log files, and things like this. Even if you don't know how to access this data, it would be nice to block it if you know it's there. The field formats. The field format scans is a huge amount of work to do, similar to the start URLs. So these two is around about half of the work, but they are highly efficient. They define which characters may appear in an input field and how many of them. There are predefined field formats like integer, alphanumeric, non-HTML, or any. So then HTML is the same as any, except of the less than and bigger than signs. But you may create your own formats, for example, email addresses, or I put an example here for hex values. Hex values appear in Microsoft SharePoint and Exchange quite frequently. Instead of doing field formats, you could also use character maps. So this is a list of allowed characters. So maybe A, B, C, and HL and Z, for example, or just a list. So and it will also define which is the minimum number of characters and which is the maximum number of characters allowed. Defining the maximum number of characters allowed is important to avoid buffer overflows. And even if the application will check this on its own, you never know if this is done everywhere. So it's a very wise decision to do this on the web application firewall level. The next one is the SQL injections. SQL injections is a very easy way to attack. For example, there's an input field and the SQL statement selecting everything from customer tableware, and this is the content of the input field. Now, if I put test is true or 1 is 1 into it, 1 is, in most cases, 1 is 1. So this will be true at any time. This will not be true, but false or true is true. So it will reply the full customer table instead of what I had been searching for, maybe I had been allowed to search for. If you turn on SQL injections, this would either get blocked, or if you change this into transform, a single quote will be replaced with 2 single quotes. So in this case, it will be select all from customer table where test is true, 2 single quotes, or, and this is a syntax error now. So test is true. So the string is searching for as test is true or 1 is 1, and it won't find this. So it's harmless now. And another one, which is very easy and will close a big bunch of attack vectors, is a cross-site scripting protection. With cross-site scripting protection, an attacker would place a script place or reflect or whatever, a script somewhere on the web server. So probably my father, for example, would connect to the banking web server, and the banking web server would, out of the blue, send a logon dialog to my father, and my father would just enter his credentials there. There had never been a logon dialog on this part of the banking application, but the bank has all the right in the world to know his credentials, so my father would put his credentials there. But of course, this is not the logon dialog coming from the bank, but this is a logon dialog coming from the script somebody put on the bank server. And the credentials my father will put there will get posted to the attacker. Or another one, this one, for example, is script. This will just show an alert page showing the cookies, but instead of alerting the cookies, I could send them somewhere, maybe via ICQ to the attacker. So cross-site scripting is a very easy way to attack, and it's very easy to block. The only thing we have to do is we have to replace all these signs, less than, to the HTML expressions, and this sign, bigger than, to the HTML expression. So this script here would be replaced with this one if you transform. And this would, so basically this would appear visible on the website of the banking application, but it won't do any harm. So the user would see the script, but the user will not be a victim. The web application firewall got 2 security models. It got a positive security model. The positive security model means you have to match the rule to get in, like the start URLs, and a negative one, similar to antivirus solution, and this is the signatures. There's a huge amount of signatures coming with web application firewall. Currently, there are, I think there are more than 5,000 of them. Unfortunately, the signatures is string compare, so they are very CPU intensive. And they protect from well-known threats. They are coming from North. But the web application firewall could also handle signatures from Nutanix, from Centix, from Deep Security Web Application Firewall, from HP, Enterprise Web Inspect, IBM AppScan, Qualys, Rapid7, AppSpider, Whitehat, or the North version 3 signatures. The signatures get updated on an hourly basis, but newly appearing signatures will not get applied. If they would do this, and this would be a false positive to your application, the application would just from one moment to the other stop working, and you would not understand why. That's why they don't get enabled. And because of this, signatures have to get maintained on a regular basis. So you have to look if there are new signatures and enable new signatures. That's a bit, signatures is a bit of a problem. So they're CPU intensive. So you shouldn't turn on signatures you don't need. They are divided into chapters. So there are signatures for Internet Information Server. There are signatures for PHP. There are signatures for WordPress. There are signatures for Microsoft Front Page. Maybe the elder ones of you will remember this crap, and so on. But unfortunately, there are also the web MISC signatures. And this is a mixture. Maybe almost half of the signatures are in there. So I would suggest turning on all the web MISC signatures and then search for keywords. There's a search engine in the signatures definition dialog, and search for keywords like Apache, Cisco, search for EXE or DLL if this is an Apache web server, search for all the Apache signatures if this is an IIS, for Novell, for groupware, and so on, and disable these. And this will disable more than half. So it's easy to disable more than half of the signatures. Maybe there are some signatures left that shouldn't be there, but this keeps the time you have to spend on signatures in a somewhat like so we be somewhat like quick. Unnecessary signatures are really a waste of CPU and cause false positives, so they shouldn't be there. I already mentioned there will always be, I got my dog here and my dog is bored. So I already mentioned there will always be false positives. There will be false positives because you didn't fully understand the application, and because the guy who is responsible for testing the application didn't test the application well. That's normal. This is not you to blame for, that's just it. So first of all, make the stakeholders aware of false positives coming up. No way to avoid false positives. There has to be a test environment. I did several projects without test environment, and they all ended in a mess. So try to have a test environment. The test environment does not necessarily need to be exactly the same as the production environment. So a VPX with hardly any bandwidth would be enough. Just a premium license, nothing else. Some people find premium licenses from Citrix Education. So if this is the only problem, use this one. Even though there's a lot of testing, usually their testing is not good enough. So the problems come in production because applications don't get fully tested, and data entered during the testing is not realistic. So I had an issue with an input field. The input field would be, so people would write a novel into the input fields, but the guy who tested just put 3 or 4 letters in it. He tested several times, and my definitions was it has to be at least 1 character and a maximum of 25, because I never saw more than 25. And users put more than 10,000 letters into it. So it didn't work. It was not properly tested. So data entered was not realistic. Sometimes users use functions that are not known to the person who is responsible for the application. I've seen this a lot. And because of this function had not been tested, and because it never appeared during the implementation phase of the web application firewall, it didn't work, because the web application firewall will only permit things the guy who did the web application firewall was aware of. Okay, if this happens, you need to turn off the web application firewall immediately so people can continue working. Turning off the web application firewall, of course, is nothing you would like to do. It's risky, but it worked until now without web application firewall, so it will work one or more hours without, to give you time. But sometimes the expression of the policies are difficult, are complex. So there would be something like HTTP request cookie user logon exists or anything like this. And oh, sorry, I messed it up. Maybe there are the application using the web application firewall. So turning off the web application firewall would put all the rest of the application on high risk. So you would just like to disable a certain policy, and I do this usually by changing the expression and doing end false to it. So no matter if the user logon cookie exists or not, the expression as a whole will be false, because true and false is false. So this will just quickly remove the policy without deleting anything, without unbinding the policy. Citrix made a lot of, and still makes a lot of progress with web application firewall in ADC version 13. We usually never suggest customers to use version 13, except of web application firewall projects. We found out there are a lot of GUI bugs in version 13. So the version 13 can sometimes not be the best version to use. That's why we usually suggest 12.1, but the web application firewall is way better. And a really brilliant thing we now have is log expressions. Log expressions can be bound to policies and do way more verbose logging. This is the web application firewall log. So this is the log Citrix ADC is using, var log, ns.log, netscaler log. And I would grab for the web application firewall, tail minus capital letter F, var log, ns.log, grab web application firewall, and this will give me all the web application firewall related events in real time. And so you see there was an issue with the start URLs. The geolocation of the attacker of the guy was North America, New Jersey. Some of my customers come from there, so this would be something I would need to go into and spend some time. This was a URL. Nobody should connect to the WordPress cron.php file, but it was not allowed. And this is a more verbose one. And you see, there's also a header user agent. And this guy was using wget from Linux. So this was not a browser attempt. This was somebody downloading or triggering something. So this was a bot doing something. So I don't need to go into it. I don't need to think, what did he do? Why did he want to go there? Is there a legal reason why he needed to go? No, he was using wget. So this is a tool to send automated queries somewhere. So I don't have to go into anything. This is the web application firewall profile here again. And this is the log expression so they are at the same time. You see they are 8:14:36 in the afternoon. The same thing. This is the IP address of the Citrix ADC. This is Citrix ADC 13 application firewall, and this is maybe your logs won't look like this, and you won't see the geolocation. I turned on geolocation logging. To do this, I have to turn on CF format logging. Geolocation logging is very important because if the log comes from North Korea, I don't spend a second thinking if this was a legitimate request or not. I would just see, another hacker, don't care about it. I tried to be quick, so I'm finished with my lecture. There's some links. This is my website. There's a test environment called Wonder Kitchen. It also contains a lab guide, so we can use this one to do our tests. This is Verizon report. This is the OWASP top 10, and this is positive technology report I mentioned. And this is where my slides are. So the slides are in tinyurl.com, Citrix user group -XL21. So you can download them from there. I thank you for listening. I hope I didn't spend more time than I was allowed to, and I didn't spend less. Do I have still some time? I think not. So I will be there for the round table and would be happy to see you there and to see your questions there. Thank you.
Thank you, Johannes. Johannes will be hosting a roundtable discussion at 2:50 p.m. Eastern Time. Feel free to join him there and to ask any questions you have about today's presentation. Up next, we have Control Up.
A user has an issue. Control Up can get a screenshot of the user session to give you visibility. This user is having issues, and I'd like to troubleshoot in their session using their rights. We can start a command prompt to troubleshoot further. Security restrictions prevent us from starting the command prompt. Instead of messing with group policy objects, we can remove the session's group policy settings, and now we can start a command prompt to continue troubleshooting. The prompt is now available to walk the user through some troubleshooting steps. Once complete, we can reapply group policy with Control Up. We have a Citrix user who put in a ticket having poor user experience. There are multiple sessions. We can start a chat with specific sessions to ensure this is the correct one. The high-level session metrics look good. Let's drill into the session and see the session processes. Sorting by CPU, we don't see anything on the Citrix side that it's causing experience degradation. Most troubleshooting tools would stop here, but not Control Up. The end user is on an iGel device being monitored by Control Up. Control Up has full visibility into iGel devices. We'll tell Control Up to navigate to the device in the console. Immediately, we can see the iGel device has high CPU utilization. However, the processes view and Control Up highlight the root cause. WebKit web process is consuming significant resources. This process started after a recent change to turn on browser content redirection. Knowing the root cause, the admins can now work on fixing this problem. ControlUp is an excellent tool for managing your infrastructure. For example, if you select a group of infrastructure machines, you can live audit and baseline your Windows Update patches. By selecting Manage Programs and Updates and expanding Updates, then expanding Microsoft Windows, ControlUp shows you all the patches applied and any differences between the machines in a color-coded display. Metadata on the compared machines is available by clicking on a patch. To save the report on your current patch state, click Export in the upper left. ControlUp's controller engine makes it a snap to see inconsistencies in your infrastructure. But ControlUp doesn't stop there. By expanding the ControlUp console with script actions, we can list all available or approved Windows updates. In addition, the script action can also apply updates. ControlUp's grouping engine takes the output of the available Windows updates and shows you which machines require different patches. By clicking Export on the ControlUp Script Actions result window, you can now have a complete report of patches applied and patches available. Access Solve from within ControlUp by clicking on the Solve tab and then clicking on the Solve button. This will launch ControlUp Solve, a web-based version of the ControlUp real-time console. The landing page is a high-level dashboard view, perfect for any administrator, help desk, or NOC. There are 3 dashboards available, one showing user experience metrics, one showing resource consumption, and one showing all combined metrics. Switching to Discovery View, and we have drilled into our environment for the first time. The Discovery View has a new dynamic topology bar showing your environment as clickable logical resources. Underneath is a graph view showing the aggregate of the metrics, and lastly, underneath is the real-time grid view. The classic ControlUp tree is available by clicking the Open Tree button. Just like the console today, you can click on a folder to focus the main display on those objects. Columns have been given new capabilities. Filters can be applied on a per-column basis. Here, we'll show only machines with more than 50% memory utilization. There is also a search box with free text queries. The display of the grid can be customized. The grid can be expanded to show more items by hiding the aggregate graphs. Expand it further to grid-only view, maximizing viewing of the number of simultaneous objects. Columns can be added, removed, rearranged, and the grid density can be selected between default, comfortable, and compact. Now, the real-time view is great, but what if you want to glance at what happened yesterday? Within Solve, we tie into ControlUp Insights, and we can pull recent historical data. Recent historical data goes back up to 3 days. Metrics with an Expand option will show you some additional metrics for a quick historical glance. In this view, historical data can be shown for up to 1 month ago. Try ControlUp for free at www.controlup.com.
Thank you, ControlUp. Up next, we have EG Innovations.
Good afternoon. My name's John Worthington. I'm the Director of Customer Success at EG Innovations, and I appreciate you giving me a few minutes to tell you about our company. From the early days of physical machines to virtualized infrastructures, public cloud services, and today's modern digital services, EG Innovations has been helping customers answer the question, why is my application slow? With the digital experience being key to a competitive edge, the digital workspace, whether that's located on your premises in a public cloud such as Azure or AWS, or whether it's a hybrid like Citrix Cloud, customers need a 360-degree view of user experience, and that's what EG Innovations provides. But since Citrix users voted this video a winner in the recent Citrix Ready Spotlight contest, I'm going to let that do the talking and then provide a few concluding remarks.
Citrix is redesigning the way how the future works. With Citrix Digital Workspace, we believe work is no longer a place. It's an increasingly dynamic activity. That's why the digital workspaces from Citrix are adaptable, offering employees freedom and security. Whether work happens on site, on the road, or in the cloud, Citrix gives you confidence without compromise. However, sometimes things go wrong. When a user complains of sluggish performance, it becomes challenging for a Citrix administrator to identify the source of the problem. EG Enterprise is a purpose-built monitoring and analytics solution for Citrix environments that allows administration teams to proactively monitor and troubleshoot performance issues instantly, even before users notice, thereby ensuring a superior digital workspace experience. Let's look at the 4 key areas where EG Enterprise helps Citrix customers. The performance of a Citrix digital workspace is determined by the experience it delivers to users. EG Enterprise measures all aspects of Citrix user experience. Log on and desktop launch times are measured by synthetic simulation. In addition, EG Enterprise monitors the real user experience by tracking every single Citrix session, providing several insights. When user experience is poor, what is causing this is the next question. To answer this, end-to-end visibility is essential. EG Enterprise has built-in expertise to monitor the performance of every Citrix workspace tier, and EG Enterprise monitors all the IT infrastructure services supporting Citrix. You can collect thousands of metrics, but where is the root cause? To determine this, EG Enterprise auto-constructs a service topology map highlighting the dependencies between the different Citrix tiers and the supporting infrastructure. Performance metrics across all tiers are auto-correlated in real time, and the root cause of the problem is highlighted clearly. The value of a monitoring tool goes beyond problem diagnosis and troubleshooting. Trends of metrics collected can be analyzed across tiers, and insights obtained for optimizing and right-sizing your infrastructure so you can accommodate more users. If you want to make your daily routine more productive, you must move from reactive to proactive monitoring. EG Enterprise is a Citrix-ready verified solution that can help you achieve your Citrix user experience and ROI goals.
Now, besides thanking all of you who voted for our video, I'd like to make a few final comments. The deep domain expertise EG Enterprise has in all components in the Citrix stack, including Citrix Cloud, may be one reason why Citrix has selected EG Enterprise as the exclusive performance monitor for their major trade shows, and more recently for their global demonstration center. But the mission-critical nature of the digital workspace and our ability to provide total performance visibility into both Citrix and non-Citrix tiers of the digital workspace are also important drivers. A Forrester study found that almost all user experience problems relied on several parts of the IT infrastructure. We've independently verified that customers get rapid ROI on their investment in EG Enterprise, as well as significant improvements in their ability to proactively isolate performance issues. Customers can no longer afford to treat the digital workspace as just another technical silo. There's just too many moving parts to today's digital workspaces. The total performance visibility that EG Enterprise provides can enable a new kind of IT hero, someone that embraces transparency and moves your organization to proactive performance management. If you'd like to hear more, stop by our booth and enter our drawing for our Bose wireless earbud giveaway, and we'll give you a gift certificate as our way of saying thank you.
Thank you, EG Innovations. Next up, we have Rode Hud. Rode is a CTA and will be presenting why modern spaces demand Sd-Wan.
Hi, good afternoon. Let me share my presentation with you. So I hope everybody can see my presentation. Yeah. So we'll be talking about why modern workplaces demand Citrix Sd-Wan, because over the past time, a lot of things have changed, and especially within the networking side of things, things have been standing still. So we'll talk about that. We'll also go into how you can use it within your own environment, some tips and tricks, some things that you need to be aware of, and also some real data from the field on the performance. So first off, my name is Ruud Hunt. I'm a networking solutions architect. I've been doing it for too long, I would guess. I did workplaces 1 year, and after that I went into networking and I never got out. And since this year, I've also been awarded a Citrix Technology Advocate. I'm from the Netherlands, all the way up north. It's a small country next to Germany. And yeah, if you have any questions or you want to ask something, you can reach out to me on here or put them in the comments. And I will see if I can answer them on the way. Now, before we get started, first let's talk a little bit about the evolution of the workspace. And it's been going on for a long time, but as I mentioned, the networking side has been, well, standing still for a long, long time. Now, if we look in the past, all our data would reside within one space within our own data center, which would either be within the same building or maybe you would rent a data center and put all the data in there. And everybody would connect to the same place and would access their data. They would go to the internet and everything was happy. And if a user had a problem from a remote site, well, most of the times they would say, well, okay, we just put in some more bandwidth. If the issue is solved, great. If not, well, you got to live with it because we did everything we could. And basically, this was the network that was around that type of workspace. So on the left side, we would have our remote locations and we would have our dedicated network from our ISP, which would be MPLS or some other private circuit. And on the right side, you have your data center, and below that, your local data, or if you want to go to the internet, you break out to the internet through your firewall or IDP, ISP, whatever you want. Now, if we look at our current day working, well, not place, more a space, we consume a lot of data from a lot of different places. So we're not only getting data from our local data center, but we're also going to Azure, AWS, Dropbox, SAP, Workforce. So it's not contained within a single space anymore. And we're breaking it out to all kinds of places, either locally, on the internet, etc. But if you look at our current workplace, then the network that's still underlying that workplace is still the same as we did 10 plus years ago. With the exception, maybe we get into Azure, we maybe have our own circuit in there, either through our data center or we have an ISP that has directly integrated it within their MPLS network. But all in all, it's still the same as 10 years ago. And yeah, within the network, it has some issues with a workplace going to all kinds of different places like Azure, AWS, Internet, etc., and using locally, because in this concept, everything has to first go through the data center and only then can it go out onto its final destination, causing a lot of delays within the network. Now, also the kind of applications that we're using have changed. If you look at Teams, you gotta love it or hate it. I think the guys who designed it must have had a lot of fun, because if you look at, for example, a one-on-one meeting, you can see that at first it will try, for example, the media to directly go from client to client. But if you have secure chat services, that will always run through Azure. Now, from a networking point of view, you cannot make any discrepancies, either if it's media or not. It will just send everything through, your data center. But in the case of media, it's also that if there's a firewall or something else in between that blocks a direct connection between the two clients, it will then do a fallback onto Azure. So then everything will run through Azure. So it's really dynamic, all the different traffic that's routed through it. But if you go onto a Teams meeting, then by default, everything will flow through Azure. So there's no direct communications anymore. And with legacy networks, you cannot see any difference in between those kind of traffic. So let's talk about the whole concept of Sd-Wan. If you look at the, probably how most networks are still built, with SD-WAN, what you're doing is basically cutting out the middleman. So you're taking away your MPLS network, and in place of MPLS with SD-WAN, you don't care if it's a private network. You only care for connectivity. This can either be just a plain internet connection. It can be satellite, 4G, MPLS, or private circuit, whatever you want. And it's just about connectivity. And through that, automatically with Citrix Sd-Wan, what it will do, it will create a virtual path. And the virtual path will be encrypted, and all data will be secured over it. But with SD-WAN, we also directly have the ability to see deep within the traffic. And taking the example of Teams, we can see if it has to be directed over the virtual path onto our data center, or maybe from a remote location directly into Azure. Or if I'm using Spotify on my laptop and I'm on a remote location, just directly send it out onto the internet. So it has the knowledge to see what kind of traffic is going where it needs to go and how to route it. So let's go into the workings of Citrix Sd-Wan. And I just picked a few examples or a few topics because, well, I only got 40 minutes and we got a lot of ground to cover if you want to cover everything. So what we'll be talking about is the different deployment methods. You can use it in different ways. We will talk about route distribution. So how can you make sure that everybody within a network knows where to send the traffic? And we'll talk about the challenges that it will bring, because with SD-WAN, it solves a lot of issues, but it also introduces a few different new challenges that you need to be aware of. Now, first off, the deployment methods. So how can you put it or integrate it within your existing network? And I did several projects, and I must say, in the beginning, people will say like, well, we have such a complex network and it's never going to work. It doesn't fit. Well, because of the different ways you can do it, it's always quite relatively easy, depending on the network. So first off, you have edge mode. And edge mode, basically, it is what it says it is. It sits at the edge of your network in between your connectivity and your location. And all the traffic will flow through your SD-WAN onto either your internet or MPLS circuit, all the way to the different side. And if you are wanting to use edge mode, it does come with the negative that within your branch networks, you have to reconfigure your networks to make sure that they are sending everything through your SD-WAN. So if you already have a branch location with a router standing there, you need to reprogram everything so that it knows it has to send everything through the SD-WAN. Also, if you want to have high availability, you will need two appliances to make sure that if one fails, it will automatically fail over to the other one. Second up is inline mode. It's also typically used at the branch locations. It does what it says. It just stands in directly between your current router and your internet provider or your MPLS provider. And the advantages of this deployment method is that you don't need to reconfigure anything within your network, because your router is still there and everything there isn't changing anything. But what happens is that when traffic is flowing through your router onto normally your provider endpoint, the Citrix Sd-Wan will grab that packet, it will encapsulate it with its own data, and then makes it part of the virtual path. So that way, traffic isn't going through the normal way, but it's directed into your virtual path network. If you are going with an inline mode deployment with high availability, you don't need a second appliance, because with Inline Mode, you have the ability for fill-to-wire. And it's a really nice feature. And basically what it does, it's a hardware component within the SD-WAN appliance. And if something happens to the data plane that is normally handling all the networking traffic, if it goes down or whatever, there's a physical relay inside, and it will automatically shut down and close the relay. And because it's closing the relay, you're basically going back to a network before you have introduced Citrix Sd-Wan. So it will fall back to its normal routing table, and everything will flow through the MPLS network or your private circuit. So you will get a downgrade within performance because you're not using multiple paths anymore, but at least traffic is still flowing through it. And the third one is virtual inline mode. This is normally what you would see within your data center, because it's just your SD-WAN is sitting at the side of the normal network. And you have to make routing changes, either dynamic, static, or whichever you prefer, to make sure that you direct traffic that you want to flow through your SD-WAN, to direct it off first to the SD-WAN and then off to the other side, instead of just flowing through your core router directly onto your MPLS network. So here are the 3 different deployment methods, all with their advantages and disadvantages. Most of the times what I would see is that all the branches would be inline mode, unless it's a new one or they don't want to order new equipment, then they would go for edge mode. But for existing locations, normally you will see just the inline mode. And virtual inline mode is normally what you would see in the data center. And especially because the licensing model from SD-WAN is that it's based on the traffic that's flowing through it, especially within a data center where you have a lot of traffic also from servers maybe going to the internet to get updates, etc. You don't want everything from your data center to flow through your SD-WAN because you need a lot of capacity for your license. So second up is route distribution. And route distribution is nothing more than letting the network know what will be the next hub for traffic to flow through in order to get to its final destination. And routing is all about being in control. Because if you're not in control and you mess something up with your routing, and I've done it in the past, things can get bad quite quickly. So within our SD-WAN network or virtual path network, all the routes from the different SD-WAN appliances will be automatically exchanged among each other, unless you specifically will say it does not have to do it. By default, it will exchange all the routes that it locally knows. It will exchange them with each other. And at the customer endpoints, it will only exchange the routing information and that from networks that are directly connected from this customer endpoint onto the SD-WAN appliances. But in real life, you have like maybe a network for your printers, your clients, for your Wi-Fi, guest access, etc. But by default, it will not exchange those kind of routes because they are not normally directly connected. So you will need to do some configuration to make sure that all the networks from the SD-WAN network get exchanged among all the different locations. Because if it doesn't know where to send the traffic through, it will just drop it and nothing will happen. So you can do it either by OSPF, BGP, PBR, which stands for policy-based routing, or static. Now, there are a few things that you need to be aware of picking which kind of routing exchange or route distribution you want to use. OSPF, BGP are what you would call dynamic routing protocols. So you would configure them once, and after that, it will just automatically arrange all the different exchanges among each other without any manual interference. Now, and on these slides, I said OSPF is easy to configure compared to BGP, which is true, but that mostly depends on the people operating the current network, which they prefer. Yeah. But there is a difference that OSPF is a lot faster in learning new routes or finding out maybe one site or one remote location has went down and failed to wire has kicked in and it has to send everything through the MPLS network again. OSPF is a lot faster with that than BGP. So even though we're talking milliseconds, if you are looking at Teams again, milliseconds matter. So the faster you can convert your network to learn the new different routes, the better it is. OSPF, on the other hand, is a lot more intensive on the hardware. So especially if you get big routing tables, you will mostly use BGP as OSPF. It can handle large routing tables, but it will be quite hard on the equipment that you're using. So maybe you're not running out of bandwidth, but then you are running out of CPU and memory maybe. And then some differences that OSPF prefers fastest path, BGP provides best path, and the type of network that is based on. Now, I didn't really talk about PBR, and that's basically because PBR, policy-based routing, and also static for that matter, is something that you would normally only use maybe in a POC, or if you really don't have any time and you want to do a hit and run, you would use PBR because yes, it's really easy to configure and it's really fast, but you have to do a lot of manual labor and you have to create your own monitors to see if something is up or not, or which path it needs to take. And it also has a really even slower convergence time than BGP. So for a POC it's great. For production, definitely not. Now, these were the three things I picked out. If somebody has some questions about it, just ask them in the chat because, yeah, you can do a lot of things and there are a lot of technical things, but I only have so much time in these presentations. So just ask them. Now, with SD-WAN, it sounds like a great story, and compared to the old days of networking, if I look at what I had to do to get a new site up and running, it's really great. But there are some points to note, and when you are running SD-WAN, to think about, because it will pop up some challenges that you didn't thought about before. And one of that is that within the network, we have built our whole security stack around the point that all the traffic is flowing through a central location. Nobody's breaking out, everybody's coming into the data center, and we can do DPI, we can do SSL offloading, inspection, sandboxing, antivirus, everything. Now, if you're running with an SD-WAN, the whole concept of SD-WAN is that you can break out directly, either to the internet or in case you need to your data center. So not all the traffic will flow through your data center anymore. So this whole security model and being in control of all the traffic, it will break within the old networking model. So for that, you will need to rethink about how you are going to inspect, log, and secure your traffic. If it's not anymore from a central point, but from a decentral point. Now, one of the options is that with Citrix, you have the standard edition, which already comes with a next generation firewall. I personally, growing up with the old kind of firewalls, would say that it has limited capabilities as next generation. But you also have the advanced edition, which has a lot more capabilities of the next generation firewalling equipment. And with those capabilities on board, you can basically do the same thing on a remote site as you did on within your data center. So that way you can still have the same level of security without getting all the traffic first onto your data center. And nowadays, also with Citrix releasing their Citrix Secure Internet Access, you can also directly go from your Citrix SD-WAN onto the CI cloud, do the inspection and all the kinds of things you want to do, and only then break it out onto the different cloud providers or onto the internet. So yeah, like Bas asked, SIA, would that be an alternative? Definitely. Because you can clean the traffic there instead of doing it on the appliance. Just break it out onto to SIA and then clean the traffic. So I hope I'm doing good on time. I didn't keep track of it. So let's talk a little bit about the real world experience. Now, we did some testing with it, but I will also lately had a customer, which is a bit different case, but they were getting up their remote site or a new site, and they contacted their ISP, and the ISP said, well, okay, we can get your private internet line, we get you an MPLS, and we'll start digging, and you'll get it within 6 months. The customer was okay, let's do it. But after 6 months, the ISP came back to them and said, well, we run into a bit of an issue with the local government because part of the digging had to go through a nature reserve where birds were breeding, and it was mating season. So the local government said, well, you cannot dig for 3 months. So that was a bit of an issue for the customer because, yeah, they thought 6 months, so they already planned everything. Now, what we did is we also brought in Citrix Sd-Wan there, and the only way we could get a connection was through 4G. And what we did was we bought, I think it was 4 4G modems, hooked them all up onto the appliance, and then spun it up. And it worked like a charm. We got like, from the 4 modems combined, we got like 200 meg downloads, 150 uploads, and they run everything through it, from video conferencing to their security system, etc. Nobody didn't even know it was running on 4G. So that's a really great example on how you can just really quickly get things up and running. And we also did some research on the performance with Go EUC. I don't know if you heard about them, but they focus on the performance of end user computing. We did some performance research on, well, Citrix claimed they would be like so much faster with OneDrive doing uploads, downloads, etc. So we challenged it, and what we have done is we built in small scale a remote location, a data center, and we did a test for the first time running from the remote location to the data center off to OneDrive, grab the file, check how long it takes, and do it 10 times, take the average of it. We did the same test again, but then with SD-WAN, with local breakout and the optimization of Office 365, so that the remote location would directly break out onto OneDrive, grab the file, again do it 10 times, take the average, and see how much faster it is. We did it for different file type, or sorry, different file sizes to see if there was any difference within it. And what we found is that if you check the blue line, that is the baseline where we did it the old-fashioned way of grabbing it through the data center onto OneDrive. And the white bars are the representation of when we do the local breakout. Now, what you see in general is that you see a reduction with 1 KB, which is not really realistic, but you already saw a 9% decrease in the download time. But if you look at the more bigger file sizes, you can see there's a decrease in download time of 15 to 13%, which if you take a look at the size, it's not seconds that you're downloading, it more likely be minutes, depending on the kind of circuit that you're using. So that's quite a high decrease. Decrease. Looking at the 1 megabit, that one's a little bit odd because it had an increase of 5%. We also didn't really find any reason why it was taking longer to download with a local internet breakout compared to backhauling it to the data center. We are suspecting it has to do a little bit with the defragmentation, but that was the only one that was a little bit higher, but for the rest we saw a big decrease in download time. We did the same time for the round trip time. So again, blue is when we're backhauling it to the data center. The white is the time it takes us if we are going directly onto Citrix Sd-Wan to OneDrive. And we saw an 80% decrease in the round trip time. Now, I think that maybe it's even more important, the round trip time, especially if you are doing it with a lot more interactive traffic, because the round trip time will either make it feel really laggy and let your user call the help desk and complain about, well, performance is not that great, compared to it feels smooth and interacting, etc. So this was really surprising. We didn't expect. We thought, well, we would see a decrease, but definitely not this significant. Also, if you are looking at the numbers, I think backhauling it was like around 30 milliseconds compared to the local breakout, which was well below the 10 milliseconds. So I think I'm doing quite good. Yeah, I'm doing good on time. So to close it off, I would like to throw in the quote, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used to when we created them." Which basically, if you are looking at the two things within IT from your working place or your end user computing compared to the networking guys, you see within the workplace a lot more innovation and things going forward compared to the quite traditional and old school style of building networks, and still having that mindset of having everything central and going out through one point. If we keep thinking that way, we will always have issues with cloud environments or hybrid cloud environments. So that's it. Thank you all for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. And well, have a lot of fun with the rest of the presentations. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Ruud. Ruud will be hosting a roundtable discussion at 2:50 Eastern Time. Feel free to join him there to ask any questions that you may have about today's presentation. Up next, we have Goliath.
Thank you for having Goliath here today. In the next 5 minutes, I'm going to talk about how we help IT pros like yourself become more proactive. Here's one of the biggest challenges facing the Citrix community today. Frankly, there's a shortage of experts like yourself out there in order to support the Citrix farms available. We work directly with Citrix to come up with these numbers. Citrix has roughly 400,000 customers globally. For every deployment, you ideally need 2 to 3 full-time experts maintaining those Citrix farms. This means the demand is about 1.2 million experts. But as you can see, the reality, there's just a supply slightly over 50,000 experts that are fully trained and certified. Now, this results in 2 things. One, you have IT generalists who don't know how to properly monitor and troubleshoot, and in that essence, defend Citrix when end user experience issues arise. For example, they don't have enough knowledge to prove to the network team that while the network bandwidth is performing well, it's not enough bandwidth to support Citrix and the users and applications that are using it on a day-to-day basis. The second thing is, for you, the real Citrix experts, you spend way too much time troubleshooting basic issues, hunting and pecking for root cause, often trying to prove that it is outside of the Citrix stack, and then trying to help put permanent fix actions in place. Now, collectively, we're never going to train enough experts to fill this gap. This is why, in conjunction with our customers, Citrix CTPs, and the community, we've developed software with embedded intelligence and automation. With Goliath's embedded intelligence and automation, we will automatically discover your entire Citrix delivery infrastructure and all of its dependencies. We have hundreds of pre-built monitors that will automatically look for any event, condition, or failure point that can negatively impact end user experience. And we then automatically alert you if any of these performance thresholds are exceeded based on industry best practices from Citrix, VMware, Microsoft, and even our own Goliath consulting experience. It's because of this embedded intelligence and automation, we can help you, the IT pro, anticipate issues and resolve them before users are impacted, troubleshoot issues quickly to have fast fix actions, and finally, document what was the root cause and prove over time those permanent fix actions have been in place and are successful with permanent resolution. This is how we help IT transform from reactive to proactive. Now, when the pandemic hit and the spike of remote employees went up, we heard the needs of you, the Citrix IT pros, and we did our best to step up even further to help you. We introduced new troubleshooting features that would help you identify root cause of latency and slowness was due to home Wi-Fi or behavior in less than 3 clicks. We offered these new data interpretation lines, which highlights performance metrics that are above Citrix best practice thresholds, helping you more quickly interpret performance data so that you can drive action. We offer similar metrics, drilling into the IC and HDX channels so that you can again identify if root cause of slowness is due to user behavior, such as using video, audio, or third-party peripheral devices. And finally, we introduced our new end user experience scorecard, which highlights how your end user experience compares based on other Citrix best practices. This was for those in management who often ask, what is performance like for our home workers? How does it compare to peers in the industry? This report allows you to benchmark just for that reason. And now I leave you with this last slide, our client logos. If you speak to any one of these organizations, they will tell you that due to our embedded intelligence and automation, it's as if they've augmented their staff with 2 to 3 full-time Citrix troubleshooting experts that are available 365 days, 7 days a week for 24 hours a day. You can also note that we can scale to meet the needs of the largest deployments of Citrix, but we have an ease of use and profile that allows us to meet the needs of small to medium-sized organizations. And we are known as the Health IT Standard. It is because of our purpose-built integrations with all major EHR vendors, Epic, Cerner, Meditech, and Allscripts, that we can give you visibility across EHR performance, user behavior, and the Citrix delivery infrastructure. So if you want to learn more or would like a free trial, email techinfo@goliathtechnologies.com. And there's still some time today to stop by our booth. We are giving 15-minute demos on very specific topics, so see the software in action. Thank you, and I'll pass it back to CUGC.
Thank you, Goliath, and thank you for reminding us the huge potential and demand for Citrix professionals. So we're going to take a short break, give you a chance to visit the vendors that have sponsored us. Please come back at 1:55 on main stage, and we will continue with presentations. Welcome back to the main stage. Next, we have Stratodesk.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the CUGC XL Northeast. This is Rich with Stratodesk. Thank you for allowing us to do the presentation today. We're going to do a quick overview of what Stratodesk is, or who Stratodesk is, and then we're going to go into some of the technology features. What is Stratodesk? Stratodesk is the leading global innovator in end-user computing management and OS software for VDI endpoints. So what does that mean? So there's No Touch Center, the management platform that's used to manage No Touch OS, a very secure Linux operating system built by Stratodesk specifically for VDI and endpoints. So it's a very secure Linux operating system, No Touch OS. So No Touch Center and No Touch OS combined make No Touch Desktop. That is Stratodesk. So let's go ahead and jump into it. We're going to, like I said, I'm going to do a little bit of PowerPoint, and then I'll show you some of the features. Obviously, we've got limited to 5 minutes, so we're going to go as quickly as we can. All right. With 4.5, we introduced the new role-based access controls, and the new role-based access controls are going to give you the No Touch Center administrator the ability to create different roles, different users, different groups, and give the ability to have specific controls over specific devices, identities, and groups. But the most important thing about this is the fact that it's going to enable us to have true multi-tenancy within No Touch Center. For those that are MSPs and service providers, we're going to want to be able to have multi-tenant architecture within No Touch Center, which of course is part of the reason why we've introduced the No Touch Center REST APIs, where you have the ability to do that and create those via scripted access. Also within No Touch Center 4.5, we introduced multi-factor authentication via RFC 6238. The key thing here is this gives the administrators the ability to control access to No Touch Center using one-time passwords, tokens, authenticator applications, whatever your favorite access security is. So it enhances the security of access to No Touch Center. You know, for those that are even, you know, whether they're public or private instances of No Touch Center, having the ability to introduce and bring this into No Touch Center takes No Touch Center one step further as far as security. Also in the 4.5 release, we've introduced the No Touch Center REST API. This is going to be something that people are going to find very useful. We presume probably the MSPs are going to find this very powerful, but basically it gives us the ability to interact with the No Touch Center using the REST APIs. And in the next slide, you'll see there are several samples of what can be used and the things that are going to be coming within the REST APIs for No Touch Center. Okay, so there you go, right? Obviously, we get the usage of NTCLI. We can set up different names, get different values, provide different features, functions. Basically, anything that you can do within the UI of No Touch Center, you will be able to do with No Touch Center REST API. Okay, this one I'm really proud of is we now have No Touch Center available natively in the Microsoft Azure Marketplace, right? So think about this. So for those customers that are wanting the ability to be able to deploy a cloud-hosted instance of No Touch Center, rather than going through some large exercise of trying to figure out how to import VHDs, etc., you can go to the Microsoft Azure Marketplace, search for Stratodesk, and you'll be able to do that and launch it right there. From there, it'll take probably 2 to 3 minutes. It's a tremendous offering. Custom icons. This is one of the things that people have been asking for a while. Is, you know, in the case where you may have multiple connections, multiple Citrix connections, those kinds of things, you can now put custom icons on those connections to be able to differentiate line of business applications versus CRM type applications, those kinds of things, right? So you have the ability to do full custom application icon support, including favicon support. So for those that are doing browsers and those kinds of things. That's pretty much everything as far as the PowerPoint. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump into No Touch Center demonstration. Okay, so what I've done is I've jumped over to No Touch Center and I've kind of shortcutted a little bit here and jumped to the roles-based access control, and I went to the roles and the users. Here you can see I've got an A admin and a B admin, and I've got an A tenant and a B tenant, right? So again, having the different role-based access controls, you can separate those tenants and those users to be able to do that. I'm also going to jump real quick. Again, given the fact that we're limited in time, we're going to go to admin as a user. I'm going to go to account settings, and you see here, this is where I can turn on the multi-factor authentication, configure the token one-time passwords. Okay, so that's about all the time we have for today. So sorry for making it so quick, but with a 5 limitation, that's about as far as we can go. So hope that helps. Again, you know, all the new things with No Touch Center 4.5. If you have any questions or anything, certainly let us know. And obviously, all the information is available at the Stratadesk website at stratadesk.com. Thanks and have a great day.
Thank you, Stratadesk. Up next, we have George Caruville. George is a CTA and will be presenting Why RIKE. It's a collaborative work management and the future of work.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity at CUGC. It's great to be with you all. My name is George Caruvilla, as James mentioned. I lead our Center of Excellence at Citrix, and we are focused on new and emerging technologies, the go-to-market strategy, and also selling and positioning of these technologies. So in that capacity, for the past 5 months or so, my team has been focused pretty much exclusively on RIKE. And the goal today is to kind of talk to you about RIKE. If you're like me, when we announced the acquisition back in Jan, there were a lot of questions as far as RIKE and Citrix and how the two align. And so I want to hopefully over the next 45 minutes, I can educate you on kind of the core value proposition and what it entails. So real quick, in terms of the agenda, like I said, first off, I want to talk about RIKE, the why and the what. So what's the problem that we're trying to solve? How does it solve it? We'll talk a little bit about some of the key differentiators where RIKE shines. We'll talk about who is RIKE really for within your organization, right? Is it IT? Is it marketing? So we'll get into that a little bit. We'll go through a couple of case studies of customers who've found tremendous value in RIKE. And then the question that's probably on all your minds, which is why RIKE and Citrix? Like, what does that really mean? How do the two companies align in terms of vision? And what does that mean for our customers? And then I'll get into a demo and hopefully show you the nuts and bolts of the solution. So let's get right into it. So first off, if you look at any organization, like think about your day-to-day job. If you look at most organizations, the problem is not a shortage of tools. It's actually the fact that you have too many tools, right? So if you look at different teams, they all have their preference as far as how they want to work. So you see Office, you see G Suite, you see Slack, Teams, Jira, Adobe, you name it. There's a plethora of tools that are out there. But when you think about how work is done, work can be segmented into various pieces, right? So that's the job of assigning work. You got to allocate resources. Resources need to be able to collaborate to execute on these projects. And then lastly, you need to be able to monitor, report on these projects as well. So the challenge is when you talk about an organization and if each team has its own set of tools, how do you effectively collaborate in a cross-functional manner? And even better, as a leader that's concerned about a strategic initiative, if I want insights into what's happening within my strategic initiative, this means that I need to meet with each individual team, lots of emails, lots of chat, lots of calls. So you can kind of see where the inefficiencies are. So taking that a step further, so let's assume it's you're working and suddenly somebody wants to assign a task or a project to you. They can reach out to you in so many different ways. It could be ServiceNow, it could be a ticketing system, it could be an email, it could be a Teams message. And then the next step is, how do you then assign and manage resources? Again, this could be a spreadsheet, it could be Smartsheet, it could be mail, Slack, you name it. And then how do you effectively collaborate? And then lastly, how do you get visibility? And you can kind of see the problem here. The problem is information silos. You've got different teams doing different things on different tools, leading to inefficiencies, which means lots of wasted effort in meetings and calls and emails. So that is the problem that RIKE is fundamentally trying to solve. And that's what collaborative work management is all about. So let's take a look at how it solves the problem. So we talked about intake. So how do people get projects and tasks assigned to them? So within RIKE, you can create projects by yourself, or you have workflows that you can define. So like there's automation built in where you can essentially have a certain form that somebody fills in to essentially create a project that'll automate the entire workflow related to that project. Secondly, how do you assign resources? So with RIKE, every user in the environment can essentially use that platform. So every user is then available to you within RIKE to assign tasks So within a project, you can basically assign all the different members of that project. You can cross-tag projects whereby that project shows up within different teams. So like if I'm in IT and I'm working on a project, but I also need HR to be involved, I can essentially tag HR on my project. And so within the HR space, and I'll talk about spaces in a bit, it'll actually show up as well. And then I can assign different resources from all across the organization to that project and specific tasks. This also means that you can collaborate effectively too. So anytime a user is assigned to a task, then anything that's changing within that task, whether someone's adding a comment or attaching a document or updating the project plan, the user is informed in real time. We also have, when it comes to dashboards, reports, and analytics, there's various reports and dashboards and beautiful pie charts available to you that provide you updated information on the different projects and portfolio of projects real time. So if I'm that leader looking to get insights with regards to my strategic initiative that involves multiple teams, cross-functional collaboration, and different, probably even external consultants, I can just go to my dashboard and I'll get real-time updates as and when a task is changed within that environment. So I also want to talk a little bit about this notion of project management tool versus a collaborative work management tool. So one of the most common misconceptions is that Rike is nothing but a project management tool, and that's not the case. And hopefully you saw the difference in the last couple of screens that I shared. But when you think about a project management tool, first of all, it's typically a niche tool, right? So whether it's Microsoft Project or something even more advanced in the PPM space, there are very niche products that have a pretty significant learning curve that a segment of users use. Secondly, it's really designed towards planning initiatives. It's not designed to operationalize those initiatives, right? And then also when you think about how that project progresses and you want to monitor costs and schedule and things like that, it's pretty difficult because you typically have to go back into that project management tool and rely on somebody with that level of mastery over the tool to make those updates. So as a program manager or a project manager, this means I need to schedule meetings with various teams to get those updates. And as an IT administrator or as an architect, this means if there are multiple projects, I got to meet with all these different people and provide updates. And a lot of my time is wasted just providing these updates, right? So what if there was a way to essentially streamline that whole process, avoid that noise, and then just have one platform that everybody can collaborate on where people can just, input the updates. And that's really the goal with the collaborative work management tool space, right? So it's taking the project planning and then moving it in, basically operationalizing that project, and then thinking more about unstructured work and project execution and all the things related to any strategic initiative or operationalizing any sort of work that's involved within an organization. So it's a little different, and it goes above and beyond just planning a project. So we talked about collaborative work management. We kind of showed you a little bit about Rike, but then in that space, what differentiates Rike? So that's the next piece that I want to cover. First and foremost, it's a tool that's designed with a very low barrier of entry. What that means is it's designed so that every employee within an organization can utilize the tool to do work. So whether it is creating tasks or projects, or if you're more advanced in a program manager and you want to manage portfolios, or you want to create workflows that tie into different systems. So let's say you want to manage your entire user onboarding process that involves multiple systems. You can actually do that entire workflow through Rike and then manage that entire initiative through Rike. So again, something as simple as managing your personal tasks and maybe tasks within your team, to managing cross-functional projects, to managing very strategic initiatives that involve portfolio of projects, and then also dealing with workflows. All of that can be done through Rike. And so it's a tool really designed for anybody within the organization. And to that note, on that note, again, to expand, right? So when you think about how people do work, different people have different preferences. Some, if I'm a project manager, I like my Gantt charts. If I am, an engineer, maybe I like my Kanban boards. Others might prefer lists. Bottom line is, regardless of how you like to do work, there's a view that's available for you within Rike that makes it easy for you to accomplish what you're trying to do. When it comes to workflows, again, Rike integrates with over 400 different systems. And so, again, when you introduce a system like Rike within an organization, it typically takes some time for organizations to then move from how they do work today to adopting a new solution. And we understand that. And so what Rike allows you to do is integrate with existing systems and then eventually look at how we can streamline those processes within Rike. So again, things like Salesforce and Jira and SAP, Rike has clear integrations with these products, and we'll get into that in a little bit. When it comes to visibility, which is also critical, right? I mean, it's not just about doing work. It's not just about execution. It's also about proactive reporting and analytics, so you can essentially improve processes and reduce costs. And so to that regard, they've got a very rich analytics engine. They provide proactive insights using AI, and then there's also some neat reporting capabilities that are built into the tool. And then lastly, from a security perspective, Rike is an industry leader when it comes to the security capabilities that the solution offers. Again, we'll dig into this a little bit, but essentially for those customers that are concerned about moving to the cloud because of security constraints, Rike addresses a lot of those concerns. So let's look at some of the key differentiators. We talked about the platform and the core capabilities. Now let's look at a few key features. The first is what we call Rike Integrate. So this, I think I touched on the fact that they've got 400 plus integrations available. And it's essentially an integration and automation platform that allows you to tie in other external systems with Rike to manage that overall workflow. So it's got, in addition to the 400 connectors that are pre-built, you can essentially connect to various other applications using the universal connector, which just leverages publicly accessible APIs. You can also connect to on-premises apps. And then it is, if you have developers who like to code, you can do that, but that's not a requirement. These many of the integrations are no code or low code, and in some cases even drag and drop, and we'll get into that. So in addition to the fact that these integrations are easy, there are many pre-built connectors that I talked about, and then pre-packaged recipes as well. So we'll get into the recipe here. So what a recipe essentially is it's either pre-built recipes that we provide you as part of the solution, and also what the community builds. And these recipes can essentially integrate not just one solution with Rike, it could involve multiple systems. So in this case, you can see how you could potentially tie Salesforce, Jira, and Slack into one, and then Twilio as well into one recipe, right? So and then it makes it super easy. These recipes have all of the steps inbuilt. You can then tweak it as needed and just tweak the specific fields that you'd like to include in that process. So it consists of a trigger and then a set of actions that essentially drive that recipe. Let's get into Rike Analyze a little bit. So Rike Analyze, again, is the way you would effectively provide analytics on what's happening within your project, portfolio of projects, or maybe your resources that are working, like if you're like a professional services team or something like that. And what's nice about Rike Analyze is that, again, it's pre-built into the system, and you have the ability to create really powerful dashboards that align to each team's objectives, and then get visibility into what's going on within your organization, specifically within each line of business. And then if I'm a leader, what's happening within my purview. And then there's a ton of business intelligence that's built into the solution, right? So that's you can customize this based on different filters that you like and get the most value out of it. Again, when you talk about different teams and different initiatives that they're chasing or different views that they're concerned about, you can tweak the data as and how each of those leaders would like that data represented. So again, Rike Analyze is available right in the tool. So there's a reports tab that's available to you within the tool. And then within that reports tab, you have different templates that you can use to start off with that analyze dashboard and then customize it as you like. Some of the common views, the project portfolio overview, that's like if I'm a portfolio manager and I'd like to know what's going on across a variety of different projects that are part of that portfolio, I have visibility into that. If I am a project manager that's more concerned about the status of my project, I can absolutely build an analytics board for that using the project status template. And then within that, I can get deeper into specific tasks and sprint level views that the project manager might deem necessary. And then if I'm a manager of a team or I'm running a professional services firm, there's also a productivity analysis board that's available to you that gives you an overview of what's your team working on, what's the resource utilization, how are tasks changing over time, things of that regard. I see a few questions, so let me see if I can get into these. Does Rike also tie into project delivery platforms? I see the ingest and updates, don't see the output side. Yes, it does tie into some of the project delivery platforms, and then you have a bi-directional sync as well. So it can actually ingest and also, essentially, if that integration is available via Rike Integrate, you can essentially then output data into those systems as well. And then I also talked about the fact that there are universal connectors that you can leverage. So if that solution has publicly accessible APIs, you could leverage those as well for that integration. Second question, is Rike a hosted platform? Absolutely, it is a hosted platform. So think of it as a SaaS solution, essentially. How does the onboarding process work? Again, here it totally depends. If you're talking about how you can consume Rike, you can go to rike.com, sign up for a trial. As part of the trial, if you feel like it's addressing your needs, then you can essentially sign up for a subscription and go from there. But if you're talking about just onboarding users into Rike once you've purchased the solution, there's a variety of ways you can do that. As I showed earlier, there's a request form and workflows also that you can build in, whereby a user can go in there, answer a few questions, and then spaces are created for them. Is Rike replacing Podio or integrating the two into one product? So today, Podio and Rike address different needs, right? So if you look at Podio, that focuses more on integrating with CRM and automation, whereas Rike is it's a much more holistic work management solution. So today they serve different markets and different needs. However, in the future, there could be integrations that we would consider still being discussed. Is this an agentless solution? Absolutely, no agents involved. Can I integrate SharePoint? Yes, you can. How does this integrate into Citrix Cloud? So today, and so I'm going to get into some of the integration roadmap, but for the time being, it's an independent solution, but eventually it'll be made part of Workspace, and we'll get into that. I think that's all the questions that I see, so I'll keep moving. Rike Lock. So I talked about the fact that one of the key differentiators, in fact, Rike is the only solution in the CWM space that offers this level of granularity when it comes to security. So before I get into the capabilities, let's talk about some of the common barriers when it comes to adopting SaaS solutions. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. The first is most organizations have highly sensitive data, which they absolutely want to protect. A lot of organizations say they're never moving that data into the cloud. And then when you think about protecting data, there's a lot of manual effort involved. So like all of you, I'm sure, spend a lot of cycles on security-related initiatives when you could be doing other things. And then when you add more security controls, what happens is it restricts the user's ability sometimes to do their work effectively. So it kind of impedes user experience. And then there's this notion that cloud apps give third-party vendors control of data, and that's a huge blocker, right? I think a lot of customers don't like the fact that they don't have absolute control over that data, and then in the future, the cloud vendor can decide to give that data away. So that's definitely, or there's some, if that data is compromised, what happens? So that's a concern that a lot of customers have as well. And then not from a user perspective, by not allowing users to consume these SaaS products that are cloud native, you're potentially limiting their ability to do work effectively and then solve business problems. So that's kind of some of the challenges that customers deal with and kind of some of the roadblocks as far as moving to the cloud. So Rike addresses a lot of these concerns, right? So while it is a SaaS solution, it gives customers complete control over their data, right? So like even though the data is in the cloud, the security controls are very similar to on-premises solutions where the customer has full control of where that data is placed, has the encryption keys. They own the encryption keys, so they have complete authority over that data. There's very granular role-based access control and visibility that's built into the solution. So now, because of those security controls, this gives users more freedom to use that online project management tool that's evergreen and updated on a regular basis with all of the latest benefits. And then, like I mentioned, this is the only solution in that online project management space that allows for customers to control the encryption key and have this level of granularity when it comes to security. All right, I see a question. Does it tie into Monday.com also? I saw several SaaS, but didn't see the logo on connectors page. I believe it does not integrate with Monday.com today. I see a question. Is it projects or folders? It's both, and we'll get into that. What's the difference between a project and a folder, and kind of the layout of Rike. Would I be able to tag tasks inside Rike? Absolutely, you will be. And again, I think when you get into the demo, a lot of these questions will become clear to you. All right, who is Rike for? Before I answer that question completely, I want to just kind of show you what some of the key capabilities are for different groups. So if you're marketing, you're concerned about product launches, you're concerned about campaigns, you're concerned about a lot of marketing organizations work with external entities. So how do you coordinate teams across those campaigns when you got people from all over working on it? So that's the key concern. How do you plan events effectively? How do you ensure content quality? And Rike has specific add-ons around marketing that address all of these concerns. So a lot of the customers that have purchased Rike use it for the marketing use case. Another is professional services. So if you think about, and it's professional services, and also when you think about teams, their team performance. So when you think about professional services, what's most important is resource utilization, while also ensuring that your employees are not facing burnout. It's also important that if you've got a large professional services team and one team's working on a cool project and there are some lessons learned, you want to be able to capture those lessons learned, templatize it, and then make it available to the other teams. And so that's something that Rike allows you to do. And then how do you prioritize certain projects over other dynamically and then increase billable hours? So again, some key capabilities are built into the solution. Dashboards that show you what your resource utilization is over a period of time to make sure the work is a little bit more balanced between the resources, and then time tracking and making sure that the client projects are addressed effectively, and then also allowing your clients in some cases to work with you on those projects. So all of that is possible with Rike. When you think about program management, again, I talked earlier about portfolio management, right? That's a core capability of the solution. So whether you're managing a project or a portfolio of projects, there's, I've talked about Rike Analyze and a lot of the, cross-functional collaboration that's built into the tool, being able to monitor what's happening within that portfolio of projects and maintaining KPI and things like that. All of that's built into the solution, and it's available right from the get-go, so that makes it compelling for the PMO use case. So the bottom line is this, right? Rike is really for everybody. It is a solution that is designed to help people across the organization do work, and whether it's IT, and I'll talk about some IT specific use cases. We talked about marketing, professional services, program management, engineering. It doesn't matter, right? There's a use case for each one of these teams when it comes to utilizing Rike, and then it's even more powerful when you think about cross-functional collaboration. Most organizations these days are trying to do more with less. So cross-functional collaboration is a must. And in such scenarios, you need to find a platform that everybody can effectively work on. And that's what Rike really helps accomplish because of the core capabilities of the solution. And for all these reasons, Rike has been recognized as a leader in the collaborative work management space by pretty much all the analysts. And they've been in that leaders quadrant for a long time now. So again, you have the confidence that this is a mature solution that customers trust. So on that topic, what I want to do next is get into a couple of case studies before we talk about the Citrix and Rike vision. The first is Walmart Canada. I mean, I love this story. Because I feel like it's so true for so many organizations, right? So if you look at most organizations, challenges are that people use all sorts of solutions. Many still like to use spreadsheets. There's minimal effective collaboration. There's silos of information. Walmart had to deal with all of that. And so they were able to solve many of those challenges by leveraging Rike. And if you look at the bottom here, if you look at all the different departments within Walmart that's using Rike right now, it gives you an idea of how powerful the solution is. And I love the quote here as well. I'm not going to read it, but you get an idea of how impactful the solution has been out there. And they continue to invest in Rike and grow the presence, and because of just the value that they're seeing out of the solution. Second is Airbnb. They had some challenges similar to Walmart, but even beyond that, they had needs to integrate with some of their existing solutions like Salesforce and Google Drive and Gmail. And then I think another challenge that they had was being a truly global organization. They had teams spread across the globe, and they wanted to basically improve the collaboration and also improve communication between those teams. And they were able to accomplish that with Rike. And some of the key capabilities that they leveraged from the solution, again, leveraging custom fields for custom status reports, dashboards, and the reporting and workflows from the solution. Again, you'll see some themes here, right? Collaboration, workflows, visibility, reporting. These are some of the, security is another one. These are some of the reasons why people, customers have invested in Rike. And if you go on Rike's website, I believe they have a lot more case studies. I was looking at it, I found about 73 different case studies on various sectors and market segments. So let's talk a little bit about Citrix and Rike. This question has come up a lot, and I on Twitter I was asking folks for areas that they wanted covered as part of this presentation, and this was definitely one that was brought up. So when you think about the two companies, first of all, what's pretty cool about the two companies is they shared a common vision, right? Both organizations, Citrix and Rike, was focused on empowering users and allowing them to do their best work possible. And what was interesting was that the approach was complementary. So from a Citrix perspective, we focused on allowing people, anybody, any users from any location, working from any device and accessing any application. That's been our mantra for a while now. And that's great. But then the one gap that we had was when you think about doing work, whether it's projects or tasks or dealing with unstructured data, how do you do that? And that's the one area that Rike has been focusing for the longest time. So now that we acquired Rike, the combined solution now covers all aspects of work, right? So it allows people to balance work and life. It allows people to work from anywhere, on any device, from any location, but also do any type of work and effectively collaborate with other users within your organization, address all of the different business workflows that are necessary. So it's just a much more comprehensive vision. And with that, what we're able to do is now, in the past, we talked about unifying work, securing work, and now with Rike, we can simplify work as well, right? And so the solution extends above and beyond IT. So for the longest time, if you look at Citrix, we focused within the IT organization, IT, networking, security. These are kind of the areas that we focused on. Rike focused on various lines of business. You combine the two, and we've got a solution that addresses the needs of all the different parts of an organization. Now, I want to, I can't talk specifically about roadmap, but what I can tell you is that some of the areas that we are looking into, one is that we talked about Rike and tasks and projects and being able to attach files from various content repositories. Very soon, you'll be able to attach documents from Citrix files within Rike as well. So as you work on projects and tasks and you want to attach collateral or content, you can do that from Citrix files. But more long-term, some of the things we're working on is, so you go into Workspace, you have your applications, you've got your data, you've got the contextual security and performance, and now you will be able to, within your activity feed, see what projects have been assigned to you, what's the status of a different project, someone that's commented on a project that needs to be acted upon. You'll be able to see that within your activity feed and act on those specific comments that are being raised. You will also have certain micro applications that are available to you that allow you to create projects, assign resources, create tasks, things like that. So all within the Workspace. So think about a regular user that needs, like, starts the day, goes into his Workspace. Before he even really starts doing work, he can very quickly get through some tasks related to certain projects quickly right from within Workspace. If he wants to take some quick actions around assigning a new task or creating a new project, he can do that as well right from within Workspace. So never really leaving Workspace. And then another aspect that we are looking into is this notion of spaces, and I'll get into spaces in a little bit. Spaces is a concept from Workspace from Rike that is basically the landing page where all of your projects and tasks live for a specific team. So we're thinking about integrating spaces into Workspace, whereby a user can go into Workspace, can also access the various spaces that he's part of, and then do some things right from within Workspace in relation to that space. So again, the idea is that for the common user, a lot of the activities related to work can be done right from within Workspace. And then for the power users, they can still launch Rike. By the way, you can launch Rike today securely from within Workspace with all of the contextual access that you're used to with the zero trust constructs, and then use it that way. So that will still be available to you. So now you can either, act upon certain notifications that are bubbling up via Workspace, use the micro apps to do certain tasks. But then if you're a power user and you want to use Rike, that's also an option from within Workspace. So that's kind of how we're thinking about the integration of Citrix and Rike. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So also, I see a question. Is there ServiceNow integration? Absolutely. In fact, we have customers that use workflows that tie ServiceNow with Rike, whereby the entire user onboarding process is automated. We also have customers that use ServiceNow for ticketing in conjunction with Rike. I wanted to touch on this a little bit because I talked a lot about Rike, but most of you are Citrix admins or architects or managers that manage Citrix environments. So a question that I typically receive is, okay, all of this is great, but as a Citrix admin or architect, how can I immediately use a solution? So we heard that loud and clear, and my team is currently working on a few templates that will be available to you through what's known as the app gallery within Rike, whereby you can essentially import this template and then manage your CVAT to CVAT service migration, or handle an app remediation project, or user adoption initiatives, or mergers and acquisitions, and we'll keep building more templates. So the idea is that it gives you a template with all of the steps and the phases related to that project right there, and then you just need to assign the different members of your team or different teams that need to work on it and guarantee the success of those initiatives. So that's something we are working on. You should see the first template available within Rike sometime in July, so stay tuned. So now we'll get into the Rike demonstration. I know we only have 10 minutes. So really quickly, just to give you an idea of some basic concepts. So when you log into Rike the first time, you'll be taken to a landing page. Within that landing page, you'll see spaces. Spaces are essentially, think of it as kind of an object that ties or aggregates all of the different projects and tasks that you and your team are working on. So an organization can have a space per department, for instance. Maybe it's within that department, you've got different teams and each team has its own space. But it basically aggregates all of the projects and folders that your specific team's working on. A folder then groups projects and tasks. So a folder can consist of multiple projects, and then a project has different types of tasks and subtasks. So that's kind of the overall overview of how that product is designed. So now let's get into the demo. Hopefully you all can still see my screen, and I will start with, let's see, this page. So hopefully all of you can see the landing page. So this is what we call our landing page. And within that landing page, if you can look on your left-hand side, you have an inbox. So this essentially is where all of your notifications bubble up, right? So you've been assigned to a task, or a task has been acted upon, or you are assigned to a new space or a project that pops up in your inbox. In the middle right here, you can pin projects or dashboards or whatever else that are really important to you. So that shows up right up top. Then you've got all the different spaces that you're part of. So this could be, like I said, it could be a team, it could be some sort of strategic initiative that you've been added to, whatever, right? So that all of the spaces that you're part of show up top, and then what did you work on recently? That shows up at the bottom. On your left-hand side, and let me close this, you will see a list of things, widgets essentially that you can get to really quick. So if you want to access reports really quickly, or access timesheets or dashboards, you can do so right from here. If you click on the question mark, you can see, hold on, you can get into quick tutorials on how to use this tool effectively. You can go further if you want to take, if you want to start your project with a specific template, you have access to those templates, and then you can create a project using that template. So that's definitely an option as well. So that's available to you. And then another thing that's, if you want to take a look, is if you want to see all of the different integrations that are available to you, that's all accessible here as well. And you'll see a wide variety. You can click on any one template. So like, for instance, if I click on Trello, it shows me some of the triggers and actions that are available to me. If you want to create a new recipe, you can do so. If you've got existing recipes, you can leverage those. You can also look at community recipes directly from here. So that's kind of an overview of the main page. Now, if I talked to you earlier about this whole notion of a request form. So if you wanted to create a quick project, it's as simple as going into a request form, and you can customize these request forms and whatever inputs that you're looking to gather from the end user. So let's say I'm creating a project around CUGC onboarding, and I can specify a date, some project goals. This needs to be rock solid. Some budget, let's say $20,000, and then I can attach some files if I want, and that creates the project for me. And once the project's created, you can see that it already, based on some template, you have certain phases and tasks that are created automatically. On the right-hand side, you have kind of the details as far as that project is concerned. It's a live editor, so any change you make here, every member of the project will see. You can give it a description. You can put some live links in there, some notes on what are some integrations that they want to explore. You can also, I think I told you about cross-tagging. So essentially, I can cross-tag a different space or a different project here. So then what that does is, if I'm working on a cross-functional team, that cross-functional project that involves multiple teams, just by cross-tagging, this shows up in that other business units project list as well. So they don't need to duplicate efforts. We are both effectively working on that same project. You also have the ability to add additional members right here to that project. If you're creating a new task, the same thing applies. You can add people very easily. You can attach files from various repositories that you need to tie to this project or task. So that's easy as well. So that's also built into the solution. But like for any project, you can have tasks and subtasks. So for instance, this particular subtask, if I wanted to assign somebody new, I can go in here and say, I want to assign Jeremy. I can do that. I can then add Jeremy and say, take a look at the share file repository for details for further details, something like that, right? So, and then you can link to files and folders and whatnot if you needed to. So that's pretty neat. So that this immediately informs Jeremy that he was added to this project, and his boss wants him to look at something. Also, we talked about the different views. So you got the list view, you've got the board view, you've got the Gantt chart view. So in the Gantt chart view, so let's say I want to change a specific task, move it out because of some reason. And as I move it out, what it does is it automatically adjusts all of the dependencies as I make a change to that task. And that'll also be reflected in my overall list of projects. So that's pretty cool too, the fact that it's completely dynamic, how that stuff happens. We also have different dashboards, so you can go anytime to a team dashboard or team capacity dashboard. So you have the ability to create these dashboards and then monitor your team utilization or what the team's working on pretty effectively. So that's the initial piece I wanted to show you. Going back to our home screen here, and I want to show you the analytics dashboard real quick. So I talked about Rike Analyze and the analytics dashboard a little earlier. So this is what it looks like, right? So assume that you are the director of an IT organization. I've got multiple teams under me, all working on all sorts of projects. I want to know what's going on. This is a dynamic look, real-time look into what's going on in my organization for my various projects. At the bottom, I get a more detailed look at the different projects, and I can click on any one of these. Like if I hit get details, it opens up that specific project, and I can dig in as I need to. And I can also quickly add a task or ask some questions about that project. But what's cool about this is, let's say I wanted to get more details on the projects that were completed. The minute I click on that completed portion of the pie chart, it then refreshes the view in relation to just the completed projects, right? So, and then it gives me information on just that aspect of the pie. I can also click on specific project owners to get more details on what's going on in their world. So again, the key here is that it's completely dynamic and updates based on specific elements that you're clicking on. You also have other reports that are available to you, right? So there's, I talked about kind of a pie chart view, but maybe you want to just look at a detailed list of OKRs. You have that level of visibility as well. So we've got 3 minutes. In the interest of time, I want to show you the cloud migration template. I talked to you about some templates that we are working on. So here's the first template that my team's working on. This is the Citrix Cloud Migration Project. And this allows you, any customer that's moving from virtual apps and desktops on-premise to virtual apps and desktop service in the cloud, or any of the other services that you're looking to utilize, you can essentially go in here and go into any one phase. So like, for instance, if I want to go into plan phase for virtual apps and desktops, I click on it. I can basically go through any one of the phases, click on that task, and it provides you all sorts of information regarding that task, some tech zone articles that you can reference. And then if I go into the build phase for virtual apps and desktops, for instance, and I'm going through real quick, it's got all of the different tasks that need to be done. But in addition to that, you can essentially assign it to different people, right? So within your organization, you might have database administrators that are working on it. There might be networking engineers and who knows who else, right? So you can assign these tasks to different individuals and they can run with it. And then you also have these cool dashboards that are built in, right? So with regards to the cloud migration project, if I'm a project manager, these are the tasks that I care about. If I'm an administrator, these are my tasks. If I'm an IT leader, here are my tasks. So all of that information bubbles up really quick. And then, as you can imagine, this then extends into Rike Analyze, and you can take it from there. So again, the idea here is to streamline processes for all of you, whereby if you're going from Citrix virtual apps and desktops on-prem to some cloud service, any one of our cloud services, you can very easily do that. And you have all of the information from a plan, build, rollout perspective. Even on the plan side, you can even, we have request forms built in for stakeholders to survey them and collect the information. So it's a very turnkey way to assure the success of your cloud migration rollout. And the last thing I wanted to show you, and we've got exactly 1 minute, so this is great. Let's see. So as I mentioned, about 3-4 months back, my team was asked to, or I was asked to build a team and take over this Rike initiative. And within 3 weeks, we were able to essentially move all of the different processes, whether that is lead and opportunity management or all of the different requests that are coming in from the field or the different projects that we are working on, integration of Salesforce related stuff or opportunity management, all of that right from within Rike. So you can look at this like leads and opportunities. I have visibility into all of that stuff. I've got all of the different Rike help requests that come into my team. I know who's working on what. I have a daily review dashboard that I use in my daily team calls where we go through what everyone's working on, what are some of the challenges that they're dealing with. And then I also have like strategic leads and opportunities where I can look at what the different strategic account executives are working on. So what I wanted to showcase here is that within 3 weeks, my team that was completely new to this tool was able to operationalize everything that we do within Rike. So that's really the power of this tool. And I want to leave you with that thought and see what's possible within your environment with a tool as simple, low barrier of entry, and powerful as Rike is. So with that, I want to thank you all. Thanks, and I'll see you guys in the roundtable.
Thank you, George. That was an enlightening session on Rike. George will be hosting a roundtable discussion at 2:50 p.m. Eastern very shortly after our next sponsor. I saw a lot of questions in the chat, and so feel free to join him there to continue the conversation and ask any questions about today's presentation. Next, we have Login VSI.
Hey there, this is Blair Parkhill, and I'm on the product management team here at Login VSI. I wanted to quickly introduce you to the concept of shift-left testing and how it can dramatically reduce production issues related to your digital workspace solutions. As I'm sure you're aware, the technology stack for workspace solutions is very complex and can take years to master an optimal working condition. But just because you were able to get it working optimally doesn't mean it will stay that way, as any and all of the components in the technology stack can change on a frequent basis. It's our nature to consume change slowly because it feels safe. But when it comes to software, safety lies in staying current. Staying current means digesting changes on an almost daily basis. In 2019 alone, the Windows 10 operating system had over 1,200 changes, and that pace is only picking up and has probably doubled on an annual basis by now. Shift-left testing refers to an organization's ability to consume as much change as possible during a development cycle. This helps to reduce the opportunity for a change to break the system when it has been pushed to production, where these breaks can cost the organization a lot more money. In a modern DevOps solution, it's common for an application to follow a continuous integration, continuous development cycle, or CI/CD. With continuous workspace engineering, the same applies. As an example, you can test a new version of Windows with all of your productivity and business critical applications in a quick application compatibility test. In less than 10 minutes, you can determine which applications still work with the update and which ones do not. Once the desktop images are solid, you can then see how these changes will stack up from a performance perspective. Every service branch release of Windows will have a performance impact on the underlying solution. And in most cases, the update will require more resources to run. To find out just how much different the performance is, a quick single host load test can show you if the update is faster or slower than before, giving you an opportunity to perform optimizations and speed the image up. Once the image is fully compatible with apps and runs quickly, it's not a bad idea to perform some user acceptance testing by diving deeper into the applications to make sure they're not only compatible, but have also not introduced any issues with your users' workflows. The next step is to then test the updates at scale, which will surface bottlenecks in the system throughout the entire technology stack. At this point, you have now consumed all of the changes for this given period, you've mitigated any compatibility and performance issues, and you're ready to push these changes to production with confidence. Of course, there are factors in everyday life that can impact performance and availability, like data center utilization, network utilization, changes ISPs have made, and other updates that happen outside of your development process. The best way to catch these before they become a problem is to push lightweight testing to the edge. By running tests from predetermined locations outside of the data center, it's possible to catch issues and deal with them before they impact your remote production workforce. As an example, let's take a look at the performance of a cloud desktop, where testing was started Friday afternoon and run continuously over the weekend and into Monday to observe the performance during low utilization versus Monday morning's high utilization. You can see that the login times increased slightly over the weekend, but during Monday morning's rush, login times dramatically increased and became very spiky over that time. So maybe you'd like to know how Login VSI can help. Login VSI has been a standard in the VDI test and benchmarking market for over 10 years. Our virtual users and Login Enterprise testing platform make it easy for you to do your continuous workspace engineering without the need for real users. In fact, you can do your application compatibility testing to see which applications aren't running or aren't running fast enough. Load testing to see how many sessions your solution can accommodate before performance tapers off. And continuous production testing to be the first to know if logon times or application performance and availability have been impacted. All with Login Enterprise. In less than an hour, you can have tests running against your desktop and application resources. To get started, all you have to do is go to www.loginvsi.com and click on the Start Free Trial button in the upper right corner of the website. That's all for now. Thanks for your attention. Have a good one.
Thank you to Login VSI for sponsoring this event. We're now moving on to our roundtable discussions. You have 4 roundtables to choose from, and they can be found on the menu bar to the left under Sessions. George will moderate the right table, Johannes and ADC Work From Home table, Ruud and Sd-Wan table, and Martin Fox, who also leads our Philly CUGC with me, an automation table. You can head over to the roundtables now, and we'll see you back on the stage at 3:30 p.m. Eastern for prizes. Thank you again for your attention.